This is the Natick Select Board. Thank you to Natick Pegasus for recording and streaming this and reminding me to put my microphone on. We're going to start out in open session, but then quickly take a roll call to enter executive session. And the reasons for that are item A, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Review of all pending litigation and arbitration matters involving the town. Item B, approve executive session minutes from the November 1st, 2023. Item A, pursuant to Mass General Laws 30A 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation where an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Linda Valentin et al. Versus Town of Natick et al. Docket 21-CV-10830, District Court, Massachusetts. Item B, pursuant to MGL 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Natick Patrol Officers, Local 496. Thank you. Mr. Sidney moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Coughlin, and we need a voice vote. Mr. Sidney?
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We will be entering into exec session. We expect to be done, I would say roughly around 7:15 to 7:20, but it might be as late as 7:30. So our agenda says 7:35. Hopefully it'll be sooner. So please come back. Thank you. This section of the meeting is not an open session for the reasons we said earlier. Thank you. Hi, we're now back in open session. Would all the people in the room please rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for those serving us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Next up is announcements. I have one on behalf of the Constituent Rail Trail, which is to announce CRT on New Year's Eve. Sounds like a band, CRT on NYE. Okay, Friends of Natick Trails and the Town of Natick welcome the public to the 3rd annual CRT on NYE, a family-friendly New Year's Eve event on a mile-long section of Constituent Rail Trail. This event will be held on Sunday, December 31st, 2023 from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We're planning to have 21 fire pit locations with snacks, beverages, entertainment, and activities stationed from mile 1.2 to mile 2.2 on the CRT, or Bacon Street to Chrysler Road. Community groups are invited to request a location. To learn more, to sign up to volunteer, or to request a location, please visit friendsofnaticktrails.org/CRTNYE, and please sign up to request a location by Friday, this Friday, December 15th. Thanks to volunteers and participants, and to Natick Public Safety and DPW for supporting this fun Natick tradition. More public information will be provided closer to New Year's Eve. Okay, that is it. John, Do you know if Jay is joining us to do the volunteer directory?
I know he is joining us. I don't see him on the screen tonight, so he might just not be here yet. Would you like me to go through it, Bruce?
No, let me go through the dam and park community engagement first, and then maybe, if need be.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think he attached a memo for this portion, and he's joining later for the other portion of the meeting.
Okay.
I got these, I got the.
All right. Rich, if you would read that, let's do that after, now that I went ahead to the dam and park community engagement. I'll go through that first. This is a memo from Bill Spratt, Executive Director of Public Works and Facilities, and Travis Farley, Director of Recreation and Parks. And it concerns January public meetings on Charles River Dam and parks. Ahead of the holidays, town staff would like to alert the public to a series of meetings happening in January related to dam removal and park design projects in South Natick. These include, number one, a hybrid meeting on January 16th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Memorial School to share information on the Charles River Climate Resilient Parks Project and the scope of work, and to gather community feedback to inform park concepts. Item 2, on January 24th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. to share information regarding the town's approach to dam removal and the upcoming state-led environmental review process, and to provide an update on the town's approach to dam removal, including construction, sediment management, and overall timeline, and to seek feedback from residents to ensure concerns are addressed in the final plan. Finally, to share information on how residents can participate in the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, or MEPA, review process. And thirdly, an in-person meeting covering the same dam removal topics will be on January 30th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Memorial School. All of these meetings will be recorded, and a memo with additional detail on the town's plans to conduct outreach ahead of the meetings. The departments are working with the Natick Communications Director to promote the meetings through a plethora of channels. And that is it for that announcement. Mr. Sidney, over to you on the...
Sure. From Jay Poropatich, our Communication Director. Town staff is proud to announce an in-progress project aimed at creating a volunteer directory which displays a simple table showcasing local organizations seeking volunteers, which would appear on natickma.gov. This effort is in response to a number of residents who said, "I wish that there was a single centralized source to find all or most volunteer opportunities in Natick." This project will grow over time, with town staff set to recruit and update the information twice per year. The near-term timing is recruitment of organizations seeking volunteers, which is basically now through January 5th. Then a launch of a public-facing webpage in mid-January. You can see more information on the natickma.gov homepage. Please help recruiting organizations. Organizations can fill out a Google form at https://forms.gle E9PX. This stuff is on Nova, so we can find the links there.
Yep.
And you can go to the natickma.gov post at natickma.gov/civic alerts AID equals 1031. You'll probably find links to these other things that Jay has created. So really great idea, and thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Okay, let's see. Okay, next up, we have public speak, and any individual may raise an issue that's not included on the agenda, and it will be taken under advisement by the board. There's no opportunity for debate during this portion. It's limited to 15 minutes, and any one individual cannot speak for more than 5 minutes. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak? Yes. please go to the podium and introduce yourself.
Hi,
And name and address, please.
my name and address. My name is Helen Schussler. Live right over here on 19 Church Street in Natick. And I have, I think, what is a very small request that I wanted to put before the board. I've already talked to John, and he may be working on this behind the scenes. I'm not sure yet. But a couple of years ago, Church Street sidewalks were taken out, and black top was put over them. So the road looks like, and the sidewalk look the same. It's all black top. And it's, you can't, a driver, especially at night, cannot see any difference between the pedestrian way and the roadway for the cars. It's quite dangerous. What we really need, I would rather have the sidewalks back, but that's not going to happen. What we really need is fog lines on both sides, so in the middle of the night, when cars are driving there and I'm walking my dog on the pedestrian way, they can see that there's a difference between the road that they're supposed to be on and the pedestrian way that I'm on. And the way it is now, it's quite dangerous. So it's just a fog line, not expensive, and would increase the safety immeasurably. So I just wanted to let you guys know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen.
Anyone else? Public speaking? Do we have anybody online? No, I don't see anyone. Okay. Moving right along. Do we have any select board updates? There? No. No, you guys are making life easy tonight. Okay. It's early. I shouldn't have said that. Well. That is a jinx. Okay, moving on to discussion and decision part, which is a vote to approve the Natick traffic calming and art installation proposal. Ms. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I have Ms. Wilson Martin here as well. This is a request, as the board knows, over the last couple of years, and probably at the start of COVID, we were able to work on some initiatives with traffic calming measures, doing some painting projects out on the roads in downtown Natick. We are the town is seeking request of the board to continue that, but having a little bit of a different spin on it this year, tying back to some of our resiliency. So I don't know if Ms. Wilson Martin, if you would like to give a little bit more detail.
Sure, just in brief, thank you, Jillian Wilson Martin, Sustainability Director. I'm stepping in for Claire Rondelli and Athena, who are really running this project. I'm part of the team, but the project, the focus of this proposal is to select one artist to do several of the traffic calming art measures with a focus on telling a story about stormwater and where it goes, the impacts of it, and help use that art to share that story. So we're looking to do a request for a call for artists in January, and we wanted to share that with the board as the roadway commissioners and just get your approval on the proposal. It follows the practices from before, and it would be run through the Natick Center Cultural District. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Sidney?
Thanks, Jillian. Do you have an idea yet which areas you would actually put this art? Because we've got lovely art already in Natick Center.
Yes, we do. They're listed in the draft proposal, and they're really the areas that were some of the first ones painted. So they're not in great shape right now. So we're not looking to paint over any of the art areas that have really been maintained and are still recognizable. But there's a few that have been really weathered. And so it's those that we are planning to redo.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve? Move approval?
Second.
Thank you, by Mr. Joseph and Mr. Sidney. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next up.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jillian.
Jillian. This is going to be good. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, they're really great. I love the art.
Okay, next.
For me?
Yeah, next up, let me announce it first. Next up is a public hearing on the Mile 10 Market application for an S15 all-alcohol license. Mr. Sidney.
The Select Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 13th, 2023 at 6:30 PM upon the application of an S15 all-alcohol package store license. The application is for Hanuman Data Corp., doing business as Mile 10 Spirits, Neil Patel, manager. The proposed location is 54B East Central Street, and the area is 1,600 square feet, consisting of one floor with one entrance and two exits. The hearing will be held in the Select Board's meeting room, 13 East Central Street, as well as remotely. Anyone wishing to be heard in this matter can participate in person or through Zoom. Login instructions will be published on the December 13, 2023 Select Board agenda. All persons interested in this application may appear and be heard at the time and place mentioned above, or may submit written comments to the Select Board at 13 East Central Street, Natick, Mass. 01760, selectboard@natickmad.org by December 6, 2023. And I move to open the public hearing.
Hold on
Second.
1 second. Right.
I would,
I just noticed that, is there anyone here from the applicant? No, I know, that's why I'm saying what I'm about to say. Thank you, Josh. Which is,
Okay,
we
so
will
skip that.
skip that. I just noticed that on the,
in order to avoid reading that all into the record again, could we move to open and then,
yes, and
And
then,
then recess?
yes, so I
Recess,
second
yep.
the motion to open.
okay, so that was Mr. Sidney and Scofflin, open. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And do we have to move to recess, or
No,
can
you
I
can
just
just
declare it?
recess.
Okay, we're in recess on that one. Okay, Jay, I don't see Jay.
Jay's in the very back.
Oh, he is. Well, you see, he just came in quietly. Okay,
Snuck right in there.
this topic is on the town brand, new logo, and next steps. So,
Yes.
is John driving your slides?
Jay Porpaddock, Town Communications Director. John Marshall's just going to pull up a deck. I'm going to walk you guys through a town brand project, as well as a particular document that's titled Brand Guidelines. So as it comes up. I'll give you a little voiceover. This is the first slide. Here we go. You can flip us to slide 2. What I'm going to walk you guys through is what many consumer brands or companies that you know just have as a set of guidelines to inform how we communicate our brand. The other word I'd use is just logo. So if you go to the next slide, these are 9 sections that I'm going to walk you through, and it's going to be 22 slides, probably about 15 minutes. There's not a decision to be had tonight. Certainly we'll take any questions, but hopefully just a chance to give you a sense of the work itself. If you go to the next one, introduction. I'm not going to read verbatim, but ultimately this project lasted over a 6-month span. We engaged primarily because we've used a town seal. Oh, there you go. We've historically used a town seal as our logo, and this particular project was aimed at not only identifying a logo, but then also the brand guidelines on how to use it. If you go to the next table of contents. So these are just 9 sections. Again, this is a document that'll live in perpetuity for anyone in any town department, any partner organization, the Natick Center Cultural District, or otherwise that's going to communicate our town and the logo associated with it. So hopefully as I walk you through this, you'll get a sense. Typically in like a consumer world of like Coca-Cola, this is handed to designers and professionals. In our case, as a town brand, it's going to be managed by town staff members. So I was trying to be extremely descriptive as we go through this. Next slide. As far as the general points that I'd like to get across on the guidelines and the project itself, again, 6 months. Ultimately, design is pretty subjective. If I flashed up different logos, everyone would have different opinions. Our first question that we actually asked in our most recent survey was a verbatim of, do you feel that there's at least one strong logo suite? And we provided residents and 401 people have responded to that. And 82% said yes, the other 18% said no. So you could interpret that as an 82% 92% approval rating. I would caution that ultimately that just means one of the 3 logo suites. So there could be differing opinions. But again, when we aggregate it, yes, no, do you think there's one strong logo suite? That was the 82 response, yes. Eve Lenson was the designer of this project. She's a Natick High graduate of 2015, a very accomplished designer, and she kind of worked with me throughout the entirety of this process. The check marks on the bottom, those are the criteria that we used to ultimately make this decision. The next slide, this will actually give you a sense of what the depth and the meaning of this logo is. John, you catch that? Next slide. Maybe just a little delay. I'm not going to read this, but I encourage folks that are interested. This, again, provides you the depth. You can see ultimately what's referred to as a mark on the top right here, and I'll walk you through the different logo executions, referred to as a logo suite. And this gives you a little bit more of a meaning behind what that individual logo is. Often logos can be illustrative, and it takes a little bit of interpretation. This will be a very clear representation of our town boundary as a whole. The next slide is going to be our first logo execution. So this is what you're looking at here is going to be referred to as our circular logo. This is one of 3 particular executions that I'll walk you through. What to get across on this particular logo execution, you're looking at our town boundary. It's a 16 square mile area. You actually have a very clean sort of sans serif that circles it. So at that point, you've denoted the town of Natick in Massachusetts. You have this is often referred to as an emblem style of a logo. The typography of the N in the middle is actually inspired by 13 West Central. It's an Underwood furniture. It's actually shared by the town seal that was recently voted upon. And the icon is a illustrative icon for the town common crossing, if you looked at an aerial view of the pathways associated with the common. So this is what our designer came up in this instance. The next slide is going to walk you through just kind of guidance of how to use it. I'm not going to read this one, but you can see from left to right, color, black, white. These files will be made available for individuals. In the case of black and white, can be used on different photography, other applications. If you flip to the next one, this is a horizontal logo. So here, this is a minimalistic approach, obviously limited copy. We've dropped the notion of Massachusetts in this instance. There's actually only 3 Naticks in the entire country, Nebraska and a village in Warwick, Rhode Island. So I don't think we're risking confusion. And often these applications will be used on physical assets as well as horizontal assets. So the previous ones will be more one-to-one, circular, or square, but this could live on the side of a truck. And in the later slides, I'll show you a couple examples. Then this, again, just kind of lays out from left to right, color, black, white. Again, second execution, just giving you a sense of how we can have a versatile set of logos. The final execution, so this is a straight kind of floating mark, if you will. This particular one, it's, you know, if you can picture Amazon's logo, this is the akin of their yellow smile at the bottom of they sell everything from A to Z. If you go to the next slide, as far as guidance on how to use this, we would ultimately have this for smaller executions as well as a second instance of a logo. So if you had a 20-page report, the first slide has horizontal or circular, and then you move into a smaller mark that can serve as a watermark or other executions. The next 2 slides, I'll give you just a brief concept here. In this instance, you're actually looking at kind of a complete logo suite. This is just a summary of all of those, so I'm not going to pause here. Feel free to ask questions along the way, but I'll pause at the very end if you have anything. I'm just trying to let you guys get to various agenda topics. Go to the next slide. These are department level lockups. Our town administrator is not here, but one of his charges was, please give me a consistent, clean logo that we can use across all departments. So this kind of style is often used for, if you're Procter & Gamble, you have many different brands. In our case, we have many different departments, and we can provide some consistency left to right. So that's the goal here. The next slide, you can see a couple more executions for departments, as well as what a press release might look like for the Recs and Park department. Again, just kind of maybe upticking our professionalism and kind of the perception that we might give as a brand. If you go to the next couple of slides, these are going to be guidance slides. These are very designer-centric, so I appreciate that this might not be the perfect audience. But the first one is just a sense of like padding and spacing that we might give around the logos. The next slide we'll start to talk about the limited, smallest sizes available. Again, we want to think about accessibility and like readability of these assets. If everyone goes by the street signs on the way home, you'll see our current seal that's used as a logo in a relatively small execution, and you're going to have a hard time seeing it, especially this time of day. If you go on to the next slide, this is our typography. So Proxima Nova is a particular font that's available on Google Fonts. It's available on nearly all devices, so it's not like an Adobe license. It's ultimately a sans serif font. It's very clean, modern, and this will be our lead in both like headlines as well as body copy. We have a sans serif execution that's listed on the bottom, Laura. On the right side, we have a couple fonts that are used just for designers. So that's what's denoted there with TT Commons and Worker 3D. That's actually what's featured in the previous logo executions. I don't think that a novice user is going to ultimately go into Adobe, but this is for other applications that are graphical in nature. Next two slides are going to be your color. So our color is a blue and red that should look fairly familiar. This is our district, the Natick Public School District, red and blue. We didn't want to deviate from that. And then we ultimately had some colors underneath that, some secondaries that can be used for accent colors, potentially evoke seasons that we often try to communicate, but just make for a versatile palette across the board. Again, there's some copying guidance that I'm not going to read verbatim, but this will help in-house folks do it, as well as potentially handing it to partner organizations. Just a couple views on the next few slides to see what it could look like. So business cards, potentially in a app or web application, a fleece, a sweatshirt, what's referred to as a favicon, that's on your web browser, the little icon. But this is starting to bring it to life. The next slide, you can see a couple vehicles. We'll work on the final execution, but now you can see some mock-ups here on some DPW and police vehicles. Again, just to give some illustrations, especially for kind of this showcase purpose. The very last slide. So we did establish a mark with our town boundary. And one of the things, and kind of the rationales to do this, is a lot of brands will ultimately use this to flip out seasons, holidays, particular events. So what we've established here is the ability to use the mark with the white N atop any photography assets. So this will just be for internal staff usage. We'll define that within the brand guidelines and enable it. But you can imagine for given these, you can look at these 5 examples, we start to use photography to communicate that in select moments, just really tactfully. Last slide is just a recap of next steps, and potentially could, warrant a few questions from the group, but how we're going to roll this out and is ultimately, making sure town staff has access to all these assets. Then we'll be working on both the current seal that's being used as a logo and start to do some replacements, just to curtail some energies around the idea that this is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is not. Most of our assets are going to go through an end-of-life cycle, and we're going to be strategic. You won't likely find us recommending street signs or recycling containers to, in fact, be flipped out entirely. They all feature a current town seal, or the old John Elliott seal. And we do appreciate that the spirit, I think, of the recent town meeting vote was replacement, but we're going to be fiscally responsible as we think about how to replace those. There will not be a capital budget request in the 2025 budget. So just want folks to be aware of that. We'll start to do some baseline metrics to understand if it's working. It's not about whether or not the logo is recognizable today, but over the course of time, years, do people start to have this sense of, oh, I know that's our logo, and we'll use sort of surveys and make sure we kind of get a good sample of folks. Future, we might build some additional brand assets. I'm working with the Natick High School for year 2 of doing some curriculum, letting them use the brand guidelines to do some various projects. I'm working with some town departments to kind of work alongside those guys. Last slide is just some simple thank yous. Thank you to the select board, just a chance to kind of announce it. Resident input, town staff input. We had some brand experts, local residents who've been in marketing for many years, and ultimately Eve Lenson. She was a hometown discount. We did pay her a fair wage, but at the same time we got a little bit of benefit for the fact that she had a lot of skin in the game. So that's just a sense of the logo, the brand, and the guidelines associated with them. Feel free, any questions? Otherwise, that's it and all I have.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Jay. That before any of my colleagues, is one of the downsides of being chair is I always have to be piling on, but this time I'm going to go first, which is, this is excellent work. I mean, this is so far beyond excellent that I don't have a word for it. It's thorough, it's well thought out, and I think it's going to be readily identifiable. And the flexibility that's built into the model is just fantastic. So with that, I will turn it over to the board for questions. Mr. Joseph.
No questions. I guess the only comment on that, I'm disappointed you used renderings in PowerPoint as opposed to throwing us a couple of hoodies with the logo on it. But, no, in all seriousness, this is fantastic. I ditto everything the chair said. I think, for me, you've thrown yourself into this role, being the first communications director for this community. And communications, I remember years ago when I was on the board, 80% of the problems we have in Natick is people aren't aware. It's just awareness of things. And part of awareness is brand. Part of awareness is communication. And you bring such a degree of professionalism, process, and inclusion to our formal engagement with communications, then this to me just sort of symbolizes the amount of work you've been doing behind the scenes on many different fronts: internal branding, internal communications, external communications. So a friend of mine who's a branding expert used to sort of define a brand as what people talk about when you leave the room. And so it needs to stand alone, and it needs to be something that has legs, and these are both good things. I'm really proud of this work, and I appreciate the effort.
Other thoughts, Mr. Sidney?
I really appreciate the work you've done on this. What I can see, I looked through the presentation earlier when I could actually focus on it on a big screen. And I was really impressed by how easy it is to identify that logo and how flexible it is for special events and things. I love it. Thank you.
I had a question. There are literally hundreds of sensory fonts. Why? I like it. I'm just curious, how did you narrow down choosing it?
Yeah, I want to give the designer credit, she ultimately, but what we netted on was, first of all, we're in a municipal setting with average town staff, so you're inside Google Fonts, which is a fairly limited. Most brands are operating with font licenses in Adobe, but Proxima Nova, people will make jokes about certain typography and fonts associated, but very modern, clean. The current use, if you go to our website, we're using Montserrat, which is a little more spread, and it just adds width and depth. The characters are a little inconsistent, so Proxima Nova is a little more consistent with special characters as well. Beyond that, we've chose to have a sans serif and sans serif for headers and copy. A lot of brands will flip between the two to have them, but from an accessibility and readability perspective, we thought just keeping with clean, accessible sans serif, which is typically thought to be more readable for all folks. And the other two fonts that are more graphic design led, very versatile. I think the work that was done to evoke the Underwood furniture, it was a loose interpretation of font. It was painted in the early 1900s, but I think it's an industrial nature and feels really distinctive. An N, I heard some good commentary that an N could be any, it could be Newton, it could be Needham, but fundamentally it's not a single limited essence of the N. Right. It's on side of a boundary, and then once you pull that N out over time, you start to say, well, that's our logo, and the average person's not going to know the typography associated with it, but those feet and that sense of the width will start to be identifiable.
Thanks. And I ditto my colleagues' comments on the excellence of the work.
Yep.
Ms. Poe?
Same. I just went through this process in another situation, and it's really fresh and thoughtful and relevant and forward. And so I just appreciate all of the hard work. I think it will make Natick stand out well and be identified well. So thank you so much. And to everyone who was a part of this process.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you indulge me for 10 more seconds?
Sure.
Sorry, and not lost on me when I looked at the secondary colors, having a color of bacon and a color of peacemaker, extra special nods to this community, so thank you.
There's a couple Easter eggs in there.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to thank Mr. Porpatich for his work on this and the work with the team. He spent a lot of time diving in with the departments, getting a good understanding in terms of, the impacts that we have with how these things are applied and what we need to do, and really involving the team as part of this process, which I think was extremely important. I know there was an equal, outreach to the residents, but I think sometimes the staff doesn't get roped in as much on these decisions, but I think this is extremely important for the staff because everything that they do kind of will tie back to this work. So just want to thank him for that effort.
Thank you. We have a comment from the public. Ms. McKenzie.
Donna McKenzie, Precinct 8. I just want to thank you as a member of the public. I think that your process was so thorough, and you invited us in as residents at significant points. And I feel like I almost have to publicly apologize, too, because at one point I thought one of those renderings of the town with the borders looked like the cover of an old Verizon phone book. Really. And I couldn't imagine it ending up so sleek and so lovely as you have rendered it. Love the Underwood Inn. Loved the crossing for downtown. Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you, Ms. McKenzie. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you again, Jay. Great job.
Yeah, good job, Jay.
Okay, now we can, yes. Do we need a motion to reopen, right?
We didn't close it.
We didn't close it.
We can just
Okay,
proceed.
we just recessed it. Okay, so we recessed the public hearing on the Mile 10 Market application. So we are now going to open that up. And Mr. Richards, please welcome, introduce yourself, and discuss your role here on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. First of all, procedurally, I just wanted to provide a copy of the notices to abutters and the affidavit that's provided by statute.
Good, thank you.
Who's the clerk?
That would be me.
Thank you, Mr. City. Good evening once again. My name is George Richards with South Natick Law. I'm an attorney here, South Natick Law in Natick, where I've practiced for the last 30-plus years. And first of all, I want to thank the board for giving us the time tonight to appear before you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I represent Hunaman Data Corp, and Neil Patel is the principal who's here this evening, is the applicant, as well as representing Dean Chronopoulos as trustee of the Chrono Realty Trust, who's the owner of the plaza. Both of those individuals are available tonight to answer questions or provide information if the board so wishes. Neil, who will be the manager of the liquor license, is currently living at 210 Cedar Street, Holliston, Mass. Neil Patel has run a business owned by his family with an alcoholic beverages license located in Hopkinton for over the last 3 years. Neither Neil or anyone else who works at this store has ever sold to a minor or violated any law, rule, or regulation regarding the sale of alcoholic beverages. Neil requests to be able to sell alcoholic beverages from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday. The hours of the operation will eventually be governed by the demands of the public as well as the board. Having already been in the liquor business, he is very familiar with the laws relative to the sale of alcohol. Neil, who managed this liquor license, has been TIPS trained, and any additional employee will also be TIPS trained. Neil will ensure that all employees uphold the statutory law as well as any rules and or regulations of the town of Natick regarding the sale of alcoholic beverages. I'd like to explain the nature of the business that Neil intends to operate. It will be a liquor store that also carries certain upscale food products that are eaten in conjunction with people having mixed drink or a glass of wine, such as a charcuterie board with items such as cheese, hard salami, crackers, and mustards. As you're probably aware, the Ballerin factors, the 7 factors that are articulated by case law, I'm going to quickly go through. One, and probably the most important, is public need. The proposed location is in a plaza within close proximity to residential and commercial uses just outside of the downtown mixed-use zoning district. In addition to 3 existing condominium complexes within walking distance, the Admiral Dewey condos, the Armory Castle condos, and the Pagan Brook condos on Union Street, there are expected to be approximately 100 to 120 new units to be constructed nearby. The former St. Pat site that's being developed by Stonegate is 54 units. The Independent Senior Living Facility on Union Street is 33 units. And the former Santander Bank in the new Gateway zoning district is proposed to be developed. I'm not sure how many units, but it looked like 30 or 40 units. There are currently no other all-alcohol retail stores in the immediate nearby area. The closest one is approximately half-mile away. Actually, Dion's is 0.4, and the Town Line Liquors is 0.6. As far as the existing stores, there are a number of other liquor stores in Natick, but as stated above, the only liquor store in downtown Natick is Dion's, which is approximately half-mile away. Kentucky Liquors was located on Washington Street, but closed several years ago and was never replaced. Ironically, most of you may know that that license was actually bought by Wegmans when that Washington Street area was being redeveloped into the Flats condominium, which is under construction now. And ironically, obviously, Wegmans gave it up, and now it's coming back potentially to downtown Natick. So downtown currently has 1 less liquor store than it had for many years. The proposed store will enhance and expand the existing offerings in the area. Because there are no other liquor stores immediately nearby, pedestrian demand is expected to be high from the surrounding residential neighborhoods and new development. Unlike many of the other liquor stores in town, the vision for the store is an upscale boutique liquor store with a wide variety of fine wines, craft beers, small batch liquors, as well as specialty products such as meat, cheeses, crackers, etc. And they expect to have wine tastings and other educational productions by their distributors. One is here tonight, Tracy Walker from W.S. Walker, who supports and has supported the store in Hopkinton and will continue supporting this store, is here to answer questions tonight as well. Because of the diverse businesses currently located in the same plaza, together with the new developments being built nearby, the issuance of the requested license will only complement and enhance the neighborhood, encourage increased foot traffic, as well as provide economic benefit to the community and strengthen the town's commercial tax base. The use of the store is a retail store, and it is allowed in this district. Traffic and size, there will be no traffic effect other than the prior use, which was a convenience store, has the same parking demand as a liquor store. The size is perfect as it lends itself to providing a requested product to customers of other stores in this retail mall, as well as to people in the neighborhood. And it's not so large as to be a destination store for people from other areas outside of Natick. It will also reduce some traffic due to the fact that people in the neighborhood who would be able to walk to the store, for customers of Bill or Shanghai Tokyo who do not have to drive to a second store after they get their takeout. In addition, all deliveries and employee parking will be limited to the parking lot behind the plaza with access off of Mulligan Street. For a 4th category is noise. There will be no noise, external noise from this business. The operation, as I said earlier, upscale liquor store with some food items that would accompany the beverages. And lastly, reputation. The reputation, Neil Patel is spotless. He has run his father's business in Hopkinton for the past several years, and they've never had a violation or a complaint. I respectfully request that the board approve the application for an all-alcohol package store license. I thank you very much for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Questions from the board? No one? Ms. Pope?
Hi, Mr. Richards, thank you. You mentioned the nature of this business having, being more upscale, having offerings such as wine tastings and things to eat and that type of nature. Why is that not a part of the application?
To be honest with you, I did not complete the application. I believe the application does not specifically ask for that information. It's more facts and circumstances of the factual background. And the intention was to, after discussing with my client, to supplement it because he expressed to me that that was his intention and his vision for the store. So we wanted to make sure that was included for the presentation tonight.
Has that been sent to the select board?
The application?
That piece of information about the nature of what the store will be
Yeah,
like?
I did upload a supplement this afternoon to the portal that laid out. It's actually more the board last December issued a policy statement on both all alcohol and beer and wine licenses and the criteria, the review criteria that they would be looking for. And so that was included in the supplemental application, which also included the upscale boutique information.
Okay. My challenge with this, and I'm just going to be just straight up, my challenge with this is, this seems like it's probably, the nature of the boutique seems like an important part of, it doesn't seem like it should be supplemental. It seems like this should be a priority description in terms of the type of business that this would be, in terms of the type of liquor store.
So I'll be perfectly honest with you. Attorney Arthur Perlman, who represents a number of different liquor stores all around the state, prepared the application prior to my involvement. And once I sat down with him and the client, we discussed the kind of, I guess, the omission that should have been provided. And I guess it's better late than never, but that is his commitment. That is his, vision and business model for this property, whether it was included in the original application or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Richard, I have a question for you, and then I have questions for your client, for the applicant.
Please.
The question I have for you is, on the complete liquor application submitted to the ABCC, it mentions that the applicant has been the manager of the store in Hopkinton since 2023. So that's a year and not several years.
Yeah, I can let him answer that. I know that his father has run the store for 3 years, and he's worked there the whole time. And I can let him speak to the fact of, when he became manager.
Hi, Mr. Patel.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
So we started operating that store in Hopkinton Country Farms in 2020, and then 2020 till 2023, now we're in 2023. So it's been 3 years since I've been managing that store.
What are your management duties involved?
Management duties involve day-to-day tasks, ordering, setting up any type of tastings that we want to do, ensuring that the cleanliness and the store is looking ideal.
So the vision that you have for the application for East Central Street, that's different than the store you work in, the concept, the business concept, is that correct?
So the concept is different, but yet I see some similarities in there, being that that store is located in Hopkinton. It's also an upscale boutique-y type shop with about 1,500 square feet, about the same amount of square feet as this space. But in this space, I believe that focusing more on the meats, the cheeses, and those types of complementary goods is going to do more justice for the space and how it's structured.
So on the map submitted, it's not really a map, what do you call it? A drawing of the premises, that's a rendering of the space submitted to the ABCC. That's not really shown on that map. What I see are ice, lottery, registers, 2 rows of wine, and lots of coolers. I don't see anything about space for educational events.
That space will be set up in conjunction with my distributors, and we would do that somewhere towards the front where people can come in and just have a sip, learn something a little bit about the bottle, and then see if they like it. If they don't, okay, well, what could you possibly like? What are your tastes like? And then we could help them and provide them a different type of selection.
Mr. Patel, who are your distributors, or who do you anticipate in this new business model?
I work with all the major distributors in Massachusetts, so I would work with all those. MS Walker, Martinetti, Horizon, Bay State. There's a list of about 8 to 10. I just can't name
No, I
them
know.
all.
I've got them.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is, if you're going to do a boutique wine store, which still hasn't been, in my mind, clearly defined, you're going to work with distributors who aren't listed in this book, because otherwise you're carrying everything at Dion's, Town Line Liquors, and all the other stores.
So there are other distributors that I do work with, Terrier Wines, Toten, that are less, that I believe do not work with Total Wine. So I would also be bringing those types of distributors in and looking for other distributors that are similar to those that would prefer working with a smaller client like myself than going to a bigger box store such as Total.
So if you were looking for, now, you're looking to have the license approved and the lease effective January 1. So presumably you've thought out what your business model is going to be, who your distributors are, your wine mix. How would you find craft beers and wines that aren't listed in the industry book, the Massachusetts Beverage Business Book?
A lot of that has to do with just communicating with different types of small, for beer, it would be a lot of distributors that are small distributors and just working directly with them that may not be in the book.
That's precisely how you would do it, but how would you do it? How would you identify these small niche craft beers and small wine producers, these books that are like 3 pages long? That's going to be something that I can't find in any of the other 7 licenses.
So in my experience, I know there's a few distributors in Massachusetts for beer specifically that if I cold call them and I tell them that I want to do, bring your type of product into this location, then they will bring it in, they will do deliveries for me.
I guess I'm asking, how do you identify them? So for example, Vitamin C Brewing doesn't work with the distributor. Most of the craft beers that I can't find in any of the other 7 licenses are not in the book. So how would you find them and call them and say, I'd like you to come in and tell me what you carry and develop relationships with them? So I guess what I'm getting to is owning a boutique wine store and a craft store is very, very different. It's a very different model than running and your family store is lovely, by the way. It's very lovely. And so, but it's a whole different model. So for example, if somebody's looking for Cavit Pinot Grigio, they can buy it from any of the 7 stores in Massachusetts. If you were to carry that, it's superfluous. That public need has already been met. Now, I don't see coolers for food. Who would be your distributors for food?
Well, I will work with companies such as Boar's Head. There's another company that I'm also just not being able to recall right now, but I would work with a few other, I would try to get a few companies put together, and try to see who would want to work with us as well, and give them food space.
So Boar's Head will not deal in a volume for that size of a store. No. I know this because I owned my store. Have you met with or gone into any other stores that you want to pattern your store on in terms of concept? Urban Grape, Holliston, the Wine House in Holliston.
I believe the Wine Empire in Ashland, if you've been there, they do a pretty great job. They work with Terrier. I don't recall his name. I do have his contact, and I can easily ask him for any type of advice, who you work with, who your distributors, that type of thing. And he'd be more willing to work with me too, more than willing to work with me too.
Another question I have for you is, do you intend to have any employees?
Yes.
Do you intend to have your wine tastings handled only by distributors?
It's going to be a combination of distributors and myself. I think that would be the way that I would want to go.
How much do you know about fine wine?
I would say that I know enough to be in the presence of a distributor and the customer and say that this wine is a good selection for XYZ reason, and have that type of communique.
But you're looking to be open from 8 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. Distributors are only available usually during the day.
Yeah, well, the hours are something that is subject to what the board approves. So, I mean, me personally, I would want to work my hours so that it's more similar to what the plaza is offering. I believe most of the plaza closes at 9:30. So I'd probably be right around those hours. But in terms of my application, I just wanted to put what was available.
I understand that. When I opened my store in Sherburne, I did the same thing, not knowing that it was against the ABCC regulations to modify those hours at any point in time without approval from the town and the ABCC.
But can I not do less hours, if not more?
You cannot do less hours, according to the ABCC and the alcohol training that we just went through in our town. You can ask for 8 to 10, and you have to be open from 8 to 10. If there's no business, that's on you. From 8 to 2 o'clock, you have no business, you need to be open. I'm really not sure, sir, what you're saying, but I'm in the middle of speaking. If you would like to approach the podium.
If you have a comment, right, raise your hand. I will not tolerate any more talking during this conversation. This is a hearing, right? Have a little respect for the speakers. Thank you.
I'm asking all of these questions because I sold my store to 2 remarkable human beings who are very good friends of mine. And because they don't drink wine and they don't know fine wine, and they didn't keep a boutique wine store, instead bringing in Buzz Balls and Bud Light on very thin margins to make up for the revenue loss they were having. They're having a difficult time making that transition. So I would want to make sure, first of all, that you understand the nature of the business concept that you're putting before the board, that you've done your homework on who your distributors are going to be for food. My concern is that this application was filed with the state, with another attorney, with the idea to have a package store, and then somewhere along the line, someone got an idea to look at a previous hearing from May 3rd, or look at our policy documents and said, oh, well, now we have to rethink about this. And you would only have maybe 2 to 3 weeks to do the research you need to do to put together a boutique concept.
Yes, I mean, I'm gonna need some time, even though my lease begins January 1st, I'm gonna need some time in order to do renovations, do work, make sure that I have everything neat, organized, and set before I bring any type of distributors in, before I get my license even approved. I have, even though I'm gonna be paying rent, I have time in order to just make sure that I have everything well set before I'm open for business.
So my last comment before I turn it back over to the board is, well, 2 things. One is I'm concerned that $25,000 is insufficient for fine wine build-out. That's one concern. And then the second concern I have is, I see that you and your attorneys have met with Deputy Chief Lazan with regard to where employees are going to park. I'm concerned about semi-tractor trailers because they can't access the alleyway behind the building. I was there tonight. There's not a throughway. So what would happen with tractor trailers if you're having Martinetti, MS Walker, and some of the larger distributors making deliveries, their drivers are going to park in the parking lot just like they do for Dunkin' Donuts and put on their flashers. And you'll have no control over that because there's no other place for them to go. They're not going to go into the lot and then manually hand truck cases of beer and wine around the fence and down the back alley to go in through the back door. So those are my only 2 concerns, and I'll leave it up to the board.
Thank you. Let me just make a quick comment. We are going to take public comments following board questions. So I know you had your hand up as requested, so I appreciate that. Mr. Sidney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of concerns here. First of all, the supplement that was uploaded doesn't seem to be available, so I don't know where it went.
If I could, I just confirmed from one of the staff, something came over at 2 o'clock today. Didn't see it until now. It was notified that it came in the OpenGov system. We got notification, but that was through an email, so our staff didn't upload it because we would have to go into the system and upload it. Just saw that email right now, so unfortunately, it's not in the packet for the board tonight.
Okay. Well, that's useful to know. So you said you were going to have boutique cheeses and boutique deli, and then you mentioned Boar's Head, which, to my mind,
I also am working with a different company out of Hopkinton that does, but that's a butcher shop. So I would try to find the best avenue going forward after I know the license is going to be approved and I know I'm going to have to spend X amount of money to do the build out, but I have some options available.
Okay, well, I was concerned because, Boar's Head I can get at Roach Brothers. It's not particularly boutique, and so you're going to be working with the typical distributors for a lot of your product. What kind of specialty liquors or specialty beers would you plan to have that would draw me into your store instead of, say, Town Line Liquors?
So, my craft section, I do want to have a lot of variety. So there may be some things that you're going to see there and here, but I'm also going to be trying to add things that are atypical. And then that's something that I'm going to work with. Even the larger distributors, they, for example, don't care. Not everyone carries all their items. They just carry whatever the main SKUs are, and we're going to be focusing on smaller SKUs. And we're also going to be focusing on working with different types of smaller vendors to try to bring in those variety of different, that product range.
Okay, and you talked about having specialty events with various distributors. Where would you expect people to park for those events? Because that is a very small parking lot. It is frequently full up, and it's very hard to get in and out of, frankly. So if you're going to have an event where people are coming in for wine tasting or beer tasting or whatever it is, where would they park?
Our event's not going to be like going out and rallying, playing guitars and that type of thing. We're not going to need a special license for that type of event. We're just trying to, by event, I mean like a tasting. That's an event. To me, that's an event. Just come in, here's a sample of 3 different wines. What do you like? What do you not like? Okay. We get to learn a little bit about your taste, and then we can maybe point you to something that better suits what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Well, what makes you different from, Dion's has got a lot of food. What makes you different from any other liquor store in the region? What would be the public need that you would be filling that isn't already being filled by them?
I think,
other than the fact that you're going to be close to some condo build out.
Yeah, I think my location is going to help with how traffic flows. People are going to be able to come in if they're doing a pizza pickup or a Chinese restaurant, or if they're dropping off their dry cleaners, if they're going to be able to get what they want in terms of alcohol or any other type of item that they're looking for to complement it, and then be off back home or be off to wherever they're headed, and that'll alleviate some traffic.
Okay. I think that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Others? Any questions on this side?
I do have some questions, but honestly, I'm formulating them as I'm hearing responses, so I'd like to come back at this point.
Fair enough.
I'd like to address the public need.
Okay.
I'd like to address the public need. Part of what I understand from council's introduction is that there's going to be a build-out of residences directly across, then again down on Union Street, over at the former Santander Bank. But those residents aren't today. And when we make our decision today, we base it on public need today, not what's going to be in 5 years. It took 7 years for Stonegate to break ground on the development across from St. Pat's, and that's going to take another 3 years to build. So I can't anticipate, and there's another property, commercial property in town that went bankrupt and had to sell their permit and the property, so we can't anticipate and base a license granting on a potential of another 400 residences. Right now in Natick, we have 15,360 residences served by 7 licenses, all but one of which allow for delivery. So that means there are over 15,000 places where people can get their alcohol. What I mentioned in a previous hearing, and I'm going to mention again today, is I don't have a place I can buy fine Barolos. I don't have a place I can buy Spanish Godellos. These are wines that aren't available. I have to special order them. And that's the kind of store that I would want to be looking at. I'd also like to reference, when we talk about public need, why this isn't like granting a business license for a pizzeria. So common business theory would be have as many pizzerias as you want and let them compete and let the strong and the best pizza win. And the reason we don't do that with alcohol is because there's a health issue associated with it. Dr. Jurgensen, David Jurgensen from Boston University School of Public Health in 2023 published a report based on research he and economists from BU did for the fiscal year or the calendar year 2022. And they estimated $5.1 billion were lost through alcohol use disorder in that year alone in Massachusetts. So that's a stunning economic loss. So that's why we don't just hand out licenses and say, may the best win. I owned a store. I went into the reason I asked you all these really, really tough questions is I wish somebody had asked those questions to me because I had never been in the industry. So I had to figure out, how do you get, if there are fine wines and they're not in this book, how do you find them? How do you find fine cheeses without, that aren't at Roche Brothers? How do I, so that took a steep year and a significant financial cost.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's also websites where they have lists of all the distributors that are available in Massachusetts, small, niche, medium-sized, everyone. So I would try to work with as many distributors as I can to try to bring in as wide a range of products as possible.
So most of the wines I carried were self-distributed. They aren't on those websites.
Yes, yeah.
So with reference to public need, I don't believe that issuing a license at this location is in the public need according to the Ballarin standard, or doesn't meet the threshold for public need in Natick at this time. I'm happy to form a motion, but I'd leave it to the board if they have
we have to get
public comment.
Any other board questions before I go to the public? I can come back to the board if you're still formulating. Okay. Members of the public, the gentleman on the left? No? Okay. Moment has passed. Any other comments from the public? Please come on up to the podium, please. Introduce yourselves. Go ahead, Don.
I'm Don Friswell. I live at 59 East Central Street, directly across from that plaza. As one of your board members is, I'm also formulating questions on the fly from what I've heard. I think I heard that there would be eating on the premises. If you look at the in the ABCC application, I think it's page 27 of the store layout, there seems to be precious little preparation space that's sanitary for the preparation of food. That's kind of a concern. The only sink that I see in this is in the bathroom, and it's a very small toilet. So I don't know if the Board of Health is, they did have part of a response in the packet. They said that they would need a victualer's license, but there doesn't seem to be any place where they can prepare food. The parking, there are 28 regular spaces and 2 handicap spaces in that lot. It's usually quite full. There were, I believe, when we walked down this evening, there were 13 or 14 cars in it. So there isn't a lot of parking. When people come in, they'll pick up Chinese food, sushi, they're dry cleaning, a pizza. People will come in and get their nails done, but they're going to stay there. People who are coming in to buy a bottle of wine or some beer are going to be in and out. But you have wine tastings, they're going to be there for a while, tying up parking spaces. So you're going to have more and more parking concerns. And I don't know how long a wine tasting would go long, but someone could stay in there. There's also a lottery booth. I don't know if they'll offer Keno. That's another reason for someone to remain there for longer than an in-and-out purchase, which happened at the Tedeschi's when I'd run over literally for a gallon of milk and I'd be in and out in 30 seconds. Again, I don't see any location. If they're concerned with selling mostly wine, but also sell beer, they have to be in a position to return or to accept returns for beer bottles. There's no space for this. Can't be outside. Can't be in the alley. So there's nothing where they can do things. At Town Line Liquors, there's quite a large room in back where the beer cans and bottles are kept, and there's no space on this location. The other thing that I'd like to mention is deliveries. My wife and I have lived there for almost 44 years. And up until the time that Tedeschi's closed, invariably a Pepsi truck would be parked on East Central Street, headed westbound across the crosswalk, unloading beverages and wheeling them in the front door of the Tedeschi's. They would park on either side of the street and be there for a fair amount of time. They are not going to go out and wheel a hand truck of beer or wine or whatever up and down a fairly bumpy back lot. And they may instruct their drivers, or the companies may instruct their drivers that they can't do that, but if someone is there and doesn't know that, they're going to park wherever they want, and it ties up traffic. I think it's just, it may be a great concept. It's not in the right location, and it doesn't seem to me to be unique enough to fulfill a different niche of the public need. So I'm strongly opposed to this. To have 3 all alcohol licenses within a mile, and earlier today I also did a mileage check. It's about 0.52 miles from this location to Town Line Liquors, and it's about 0.3 of a mile to Dion's. All of which, if you want to get out there and walk for health, you can do that. But to have 3 of the 7 licenses concentrated in a very small area, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's not enough critical mass, I think, to support 3 stores doing the same thing in the same area. And if we're talking more wines, you have to add in Tilly's because they have a beer and wine license as well. So I think there are enough outlets nearby to satisfy the public needs, so I don't think that's been met. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frizzle. Others from the public? Don't be shy. Mr. Osler.
Hi, Josh Ostroff, 18 Arlenson Road. Not really in a butter, but I have a couple of things I wanted to just mention in this hearing. You have a letter from the Mass Package Store Association opposing this license, and I'd just like to comment that this letter seems to suggest that this is an above quota license, an additional license, and they're concerned about the oversaturation. But if we're talking about a small store replacing the high volume business that was Wegmans, it would seem to be negligible. So I hope the board is not giving that that letter a lot of credence. I also haven't been able to find the package store policy, if there is one, on the website. I do see a statement that you were at quota and we're not awarding additional licenses, we being the town. So that might have been from July when Wegmans went away. But if there is a policy statement that identifies the criteria that the board is seeking to apply, that's not available to the public, at least not readily available.
It is on Novus agenda. It is as it says S15 off-premise liquor license, or sorry, off-premise license issuance dated 12/14/22.
Great. Well, I'm not going to read that
bottom of
4-page
the-
document here, but I'm glad to see that you have it. So what I would just ask that the board really stay within the four corners that you have defined as being, within your authority to do that. I heard questions about food preparation or food service, and if that is like something that's a criterion that you would expect applicants to adhere to, that's fine. But if not, I just don't think it's fair to the applicant to move the goalposts on this. In terms of a public need, well, Kentucky Spirits was in business for like 80 or 90 years before they sold their license to Wegmans in 2018 or so. There's more people living in Natick Center now than there were then, and I think it's reasonable to expect that there will be more some, whether or not every project is broken ground or is built out, has a CO and so forth. So I don't know that it's fair to do that. I'd also say that the board has made a concerted effort through Mr. Joseph's leadership, but with the support of the full board and town meeting, to liberalize our alcohol policies over the past few years. And that dates back to when I was on the board with Paul first time, and just going back to 2008 or so, I mean, even long before that. I think that their availability of alcohol served in restaurants is something that people are, I think, generally okay with, even though there's, I think, a significant risk of over-serving in that case. That's something that we expect through education and enforcement to be able to address. With increasing amounts of food delivery and takeout, particularly in Natick Center, but probably everywhere, I'm not sure that we can say the public need is not being addressed. I don't have skin in this game. It's not a place I would necessarily go. I just want to make sure that the applicant is being treated fairly, that someone that wants to come in and invest in this community is being, just given, a fair shake to do so. So just questions about, that are within the spirit of the focus of the policy, that seems fair. Other stuff, I'm just not so sure about. I know there's no such thing as a perfect application. I would just say that if there's concerns or questions, I hope you continue it and not deny it, so that those issues or questions can be resolved. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ostroff. To be clear, I wasn't asking questions about food preparation. My assumption is that the food would all be prepackaged. So my questions were with regard to that.
Yes, no, I wasn't referring to your anything, but I don't even know that that is within,
It is within the policy. That's specifically set forth.
Okay. Well, yeah, stuff I didn't know because I hadn't seen it, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ostroff.
Thank you. Other speakers? Sir.
Chairman, members of the board, Joseph Dion, owner of Dion's Fine Wine. I just want to quickly follow up to a comment, Mr. Ostroff. Excuse me if I pronounce it wrong. You talk about Kentucky Liquors. Do we know why Kentucky Liquors sold to Wegmans?
They won $750 million.
No, because he couldn't survive anymore. We were there pre-Total Wine, so wasn't Kentucky. Pre-Total Wine, we were fine. 2 stores, there was a public need for 2 stores downtown. Post-Total Wine, we lost money every single year until Kentucky sold to Wegmans. So unfortunately, the dynamic, and I think a lot of that Massachusetts Package Store Association letter had to do with the change in the market. So as far as public need, I think the public need is sufficed now and it met. As far as fitness for character, I talked to Neil earlier, and I think he's a wonderful young man. And I hate standing up here and opposing his application because he's, I'm sure, a great retailer. And I told him, I says, if you get this application approved, come talk to me, and we're going to work together and do a good job for the community of Natick. I like to look at other communities. The town of Lexington, beautiful downtown Lexington, has 1 license downtown. And that's a great community to mirror. So I really don't think there's a need for 2. I personally try to give back to the community as much as I can. I try to hire good wine staff. I try to have a great selection. And unfortunately, when you dilute the market, the only way to make it is selling lottery and nips. And that is easy to do, and I don't want to do that. So, guys, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I have to oppose this application. I like Neil. I think he's a great young man, but I just don't see the need, and we have historical evidence that 2 licenses does not work downtown post-Total Wine. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dion. Any other comments? Sir?
Hi, everybody. Phil Reevy, live at 46 Union. I see a lot of people here who have been here for a long time. I've been in Natick for, my wife and I, about 35 minutes. We bought our house a month ago, right up at the top of the hill. Yeah, exactly. Sorry for all the Christmas lights. So, and by the way, Parks and Rec told me this was going to be way more contentious than it's turned out to be, having moved from Boston, so kudos to everybody. It just sort of representing a couple other things, you know, talking about community need, and I haven't, again, been here for particularly long, but there's a couple other things to think about from community need. One, as previously stated, these developments that would potentially make up a community need don't exist yet, which is fair. 2, people in my age bracket, which is about 35 and younger, in 2017, 14% of us were sober, and now in 2023, almost 30% of us are. That number is going up considerably every year, so despite the fact that the community is increasing, as evidenced by people that are our age buying homes and moving here, more and more of us don't drink. I don't really drink much anymore. I do on occasion, but it's pretty rare. I don't have the background on this that obviously a lot of people here do, but my understanding was that was originally going to be a convenience store in the location. And I could see, of living right up at the top of said hill, could see a lot more reason for somebody, you know, selfishly speaking, to have a way to walk down the hill and have access to sandwiches, food. I'm from New York City, so for me, I heard that, and I was like, oh, bodega, great, this is fantastic. The last thing I would say is it sounds like this plan has pivoted fairly drastically between what we wanted to open and what we now think will be approved, and there's no personal feelings about that one way or another, but I think we need to identify the difference between wine samples and wine tasting, and there is definitely a difference. If you're, you know, if you have a wine tasting, you need a dedicated space and a counter for that. You need a spit bucket for that. You need an identifying understanding of what goes into the wine for that. Back when I did drink more, I have a CMS level 1 license, which I'm not sure anybody that works at this location is going to know what those initials mean. And that's a problem, right? If you were opening a natural wine store and knew what natural wine meant and could find some local cheeses, you know, it would be great. And my wife and I would be the first people that would be excited about something like that. But the demographics don't support it. The town is obviously continuing, people are continuing to move in, and the people that are buying these condos are going to be people that are potentially moving from the city of Boston. They're going to be continuing to make these changes. Those are people who in higher likelihoods don't drink. That's not going to be a thing that necessarily exists. So if we look at something that benefits the community, and to the previous speaker, I don't know if that's the purview for acceptance or failure here. I just want to be clear. I don't know if my opinion on whether or not it's useful or good is important to whether this is approved or declined. But I was asked for my opinion, and my opinion is that generally speaking, if you need to live closer than 0.3 miles from your liquor store, that probably says more about you than the state of the town. And I don't want to judge anybody, but I'm going to judge you a little bit, right? There's just a smidge, right? I could walk backwards that distance and I'd hate myself, but we could get there. So that's just my opinion.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. DeMayo? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you unmute her, John?
Yes, thank you. Patricia DeMayo, Precinct 6 Town Meeting Member. I'm wondering if the existing shops in that block have been approached and how they feel about the parking problems and how that will impact their businesses.
Good question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Richards, would you like to take a shot at that?
Well, first something that I forgot to mention, but just in the last 3 days, Bill's put out for their customers to see if they supported such a use. And in 3 days, we have close to 100 signatures that I'd like to submit to the board if I could, that I think supports the public need. I can't speak for the plaza owner, but I don't believe anybody had issues with regard to traffic or parking when they signed it.
And if I may, Mr. Richards, where did you get those signatures?
Either outside or in Bill's Pizzeria.
Bill's Pizzeria.
In the plaza.
Okay. And then you'll go to the clerk. Okay. Okay, we should scan those just to...
And then if I just could quickly address some of the issues. None of the food's going to be prepared on premises. It will be pre-prepared or packaged. And the gentleman's correct, it's really wine sampling, not testing. I think probably anybody who's been to a liquor store where there is wine being tasted, they give you a very, very small amount of maybe 2 or 3 kinds of wine, and that's it. You don't sit there for 20 minutes tasting and discussing, et cetera. You can discuss it, and yes, it might take a little more time as a result, but the gentleman's correct. It's not a formal tasting process. It's more sampling prospective wines. And in that regard, we would be happy to supplement, if the board was to continue it, to supplement the floor plan to show where the wine sampling would take place. And unfortunately, I think there was an updated plan that didn't make it into the to the application that does show more dry provisions and non-alcoholic beverages, et cetera. So we'd be happy to provide a supplemental floor plan if the board so requested. Lastly, if you want me to, I can read the review criteria that was part of your policy statement, or I could read the supplement. Most of the issues I've already covered because that's part of the 6 criteria, review criteria, but I'd be happy to do that if the board wanted me to.
You know what? I'm going to allow that because it'll be good to get that on the
Okay.
record.
Real quickly, the first is suitability and proximity of the proposed premises to neighborhoods and other sensitive areas. As I pointed out, the plaza is located in close proximity to commercial and residential uses, and the existing condominium complexes are within walking distance, but there are no stores in the plaza that would attract children or present, I think, be considered a sensitive area by the board. It's really a commercial plaza that would be appropriate, was appropriate for a convenience store, and we submit would be appropriate for an alcohol retail store as well. The second, attract quality, all alcohol off-premise establishments and complement to other quality offerings of the community. Again, we talked about it being an upscale liquor store with a wide range of craft beers, fine wines, et cetera, and specialty products that would be a complement both to the sale of alcoholic beverages as well as to neighboring residents in the community, as well as other visitors to the plaza, whether it be to Bill's or Shanghai Tokyo or Nails, that would then be able to have a complimentary liquor store right there without having to drive elsewhere. Number 3, provide shopping options in convenient locations designed to limit the amount need for automobile use, such as within walking distance to public transit, mixed-use districts, or residential neighborhoods. Again, it hasn't been built, but there's going to be a mixed-use development across the street, and the concept is that this will be used more by pedestrian customers than by cars, other than the cars that probably already come into the plaza to go to Bill's or one of the other vendors. Number 4, enhance the variety of shops and retail offerings in underserved areas of town, where the issuance of an all-alcohol off-premise license will help to fill an existing gap or meet unmet market demand. Again, this is in dispute. Some feel that there's plenty that anyone, within it sounds like 3/4 of a mile of Dion's should be able to walk there. We would submit that not everyone will do that. Not everyone. Yes, there are a lot of healthy people, and there are a lot of people that will choose to walk, but there are a significant number of people who would choose to get in their car and run an errand first and then go to Dion's or drive over to the liquor store, the Town Line Liquor Store. I don't see a lot of people walking to that store. From our research and what we know, that store, Town Line, services a lot of Wellesley, because obviously Wellesley does not have any liquor stores on its right across the line. The last, 5 is promote the vibrancy and continued viability of Natick's mixed-use district corridors by attracting and enhancing diverse, independent, or unique businesses. Again, we've been through this, that in theory this is going to be a unique type of liquor store that would enhance this mixed-use district. 6, offer locations that provide enhanced economic benefit to the community and strengthen the town's commercial tax base. Again, this, in theory, would provide an economic benefit to the plaza and to the town through increased commercial tax base. Hopefully you can also access that supplement. I've gone through those, number 6, because the diverse businesses currently located in the same plaza, together with developments being built nearby, the issuance of the license will only complement and enhance the neighborhood, encourage increased food traffic, as well as provide economic benefit to the community and strengthen the town's commercial tax base. So I'm sorry to be repetitive, but trying to address all 6 of those criteria so that you can make an informed decision. And thank you again very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Richards.
Thank you very much for letting me be a part of this process. My name is Jocelyn Sage Mitchell, and I am the Retail Sales and Community Outreach Manager at Dion's Natick. I think that I'm hearing the questions and the comments from the board, as well as members of the community, that they're not seeing the sufficient public need. My comments are meant to address what happens when there isn't a public need, how that results in an increased risk to public safety. Because as a member of the board mentioned very clearly, this is not about who makes the best pizza. It's about selling alcohol to the public, and you have to do so in a safe and responsible way. We have a huge responsibility to our community. We take it very seriously. We rigorously ID. We enforce all of the alcohol selling policies, and we refuse service when necessary. And because we've been supported economically by our community, we've been able to hire good people. We've been able to staff our store with multiple people during the important hours of the day so that nobody's by themselves. And we're able to invest in training and certification, not only in terms of wine and spirits, but in terms of the alcohol policies. And I want to give 3 examples of how we keep our community safe and why another store, as our neighbor said, located a third a mile away, according to Google Maps, an easy walk away. We keep talking about pedestrian access. A pedestrian walk away would make our store, our whole community less safe. I brought props. This is a handle of vodka, 1.75 liters of vodka. This is what I took from a customer's hands at noon on just this past Friday when I was refusing service to him. This man, he came into the store, and because we have good people, because we have multiple eyes saying hello to people and interacting with our customers, we saw right away he wasn't walking well. His eyes were glassy, so by the time he came up to the counter, we were ready. And I took it away calmly but firmly, and I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't serve you." He became very belligerent. He became aggressive. I was very glad to see that he left the store before I had to call the police. But I was 2 numbers into 911 when he walked out the door. And if he could have stumbled 0.3 miles down the street to try again, that makes our community less safe. Exhibit 1. Exhibit 2. These are the fake IDs of underage drinkers that we have confiscated just in the past year that I started working at Dion's Natick. We rigorously ID. We have good people who spot the fakes and they confiscate them. These are the underage drinkers that we're attempting to buy. We have a reputation in the community that we are not the place to go for underage children, underage kids who want to try to buy alcohol. And if these kids had another place to try, then again, that makes our community much less safe. And last, because we are the downtown liquor store, I want to express that we care about our customers and we get to know our customers. And that matters a lot. We know the people that come in walking. They walk in on a regular basis, and we know them, and we can follow up with them, and we can show care and compassion, and we can know when to say, "I'm sorry, but we're going to refuse service." And one example, again, that happened just in this past week was a customer came showing acute signs of jaundice, and we knew what he was supposed to look like. We knew what his skin color was supposed to be, not this yellow color. And instead of serving him, not me, another one of our highly trained staff said to him, "I'm sorry, sir, we are not going to serve you. And in fact, we encourage you to go to an emergency room." And as he was leaving, he said, "You know, that's what my family was telling me too." So that's the kind of example that I want to give you in terms of how seriously we take our responsibility and how important this is. Not about who makes the best pizza, it's about keeping our community safe. And when we refuse service, I like the fact that there isn't another place that somebody can walk literally less than 8 minutes down the road to try again. Thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Thank you.
To another person. Ms. McEachran, I hope I pronounced that reasonably close.
You did that beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. I have owned a small business in Natick Center for 21 years. And I just know that since the pandemic and since, big box stores and things like that are joining our community out on Route 9, it is harder and harder and harder to stay afloat. And I think that having businesses that are pretty much identical, very close to each other, is not going to be a win for either business. It's just not. We can't sustain two businesses that are that similar to each other, actually 3 businesses that are that similar to each other, that close to each other. And I think just, as a small town, I want to respect the businesses that have been doing business here and that are here and are supportive of our town. So I would have to be against this as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay. So Joseph, you had tabled yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sounds profound. Mr. Patel, I just had a couple questions for you. And I want to thank Attorney Richards for reading through those criteria. I did have the policy open while we were going through all of this. In fact, for the public's benefit, a little bit of background on our alcohol policies. When I rejoined the board a couple of years ago, we had a comprehensive review of policies that required refreshing. I've been working over the last year and a half. We started with the on-premises licensing, which I did bring some changes to town meeting a little over a year ago. There's a working group now that convened for the first time about a week ago, and we're going to reconvene in January. We will be reaching out to the off-premises proprietors to participate in a refresh of this exact policy, which was refreshed slightly with our review last year. So there will be sort of a constant look at what goes into this. To Attorney Richards' comments and to a member of the public that spoke previously, we do have a framework. We do have criteria. We do consider things that matter significantly to the community. Before I get into the process piece, I'm curious, and these questions I wasn't thinking about until you were responding, but rather than talking about public need, as a business owner, well, there's public need.
I'm sorry.
No, no worries. You can't script this stuff. So. So, yeah, rather than talking about public need, as a business owner, what do you see as the opportunity?
There is opportunity in that location to have I see a thriving business there. A place that serves the community, but also is going to service the business and help me grow as an entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you. I guess that's kind of the answer, I guess, that I just needed to hear. In thinking about comments, first of all, I did look at your family's business in Hopkinton. It looks like a thriving and wonderful place. I've looked at articles talking and praising your family for responsible community membership, as a member of our board did previously. So thank you for that. From my perspective, and I've also volunteered, I'm the board liaison to Natick 180, which is our substance use coalition in the community, and I was participating in that even before it became Natick 180, when it was Natick Together for Youth. I've also been a trained tips trainer and former beverage server, and actually owned and ran a bartending school. So I've got a little bit of knowledge in terms of responsible service. I have no qualms with the fact that I think you're responsible. And I don't have any concerns about risk from the standpoint of how you would manage this place, where you've come from in terms of the business that you're running right now. Clearly, you check that box, and I think that's, from my standpoint, probably the most important one in terms of deciding whether or not to issue a license. So thank you for that. I thank your family for that, and I think that's critical for anybody listening to this public hearing if you're considering whatever type of license. I did spend a lot of time, and part of rarely not not talking, but just listening for the first round of questions. When asked about the public need by Mr. Sidney, your first answer about what public need being filled was location. And the second answer was convenience. And you gave the example of people running in for pizza, picking up their dry cleaning. And to me, that's completely inconsistent with how you're positioning this business as an upscale, boutique, high-end market. And your answer to my question when I first called you up here about the opportunity lacked any what I consider depth of somebody that's truly trying to have an impact on the diversity and quality of offerings in the community, which is under criteria item number 2. That bothers me from the standpoint that none of your answers has shown me that critical threshold. I've also volunteered in economic development in this community since 2009. As Mr. Ostroff indicated, we're working very hard to diversify and expand opportunities in this community. So diversity of offer is really important to me, and I don't see it here. I didn't hear it in your answers. I mean, could you name 2 products? What would be the 2 high-end beers, 2 high-end wines that you think would make or break the sort of positioning of your business coming into a new market?
So we carry beers such as like Start Line, try to get a Lamplighter, that type of sort of IPA in the store, and as well as like Brunello or Sasakai or something like that. And we would also, in terms of need, we would try to find that need that the community has, but also put out what we believe the community needs and try to find that balance, because we're not going to know exactly what we're going to be able to offer that the community is looking for until the community starts asking for it. And then, okay, we try to find that balance. Well, we can fulfill these needs, but we can't fulfill those others. And then try to find that balance between what is possible for our the size of our store.
Understood. Yeah. But again, as an entrepreneur coming into a new market, research, advanced research, understanding your market, Start Line being a Hopkinton-based brewer, we've got Lookout Farm 2 miles up from where you are, distribution of local product might be interesting, and strategic partnerships. I guess, again, I'm looking for more creativity and uniqueness in your answers, and I'm not hearing them. And to me, given how you're trying to position this business, that it's not resonating with me. My other question is, and this seemed like a contradiction in answer, are they wine tastings or is it samplings?
So I believe the term that we're looking for might be samplings, but in terms of an event, then I still would like to host an event once a week with different types of distributors and that type of thing, just to involve different types of people, different types of products, and show them that we have these types of offerings. And then that's also based on public need. Okay, well, the public's asking for this type of event or this type of sampling, so say we we start doing it once a week, then we start doing once every 2 weeks based on what type of products that the public is requesting as we're able to get them available. And they're more samplings, I would say.
Okay. And how many people would you expect to attend something like that?
So samplings, I believe, are just more one person doing tastings for a customer coming into the store. And then it would range for like 3 hours or so. If someone comes in, we would offer them, hey, are you interested in so-and-so product? Okay, yes, here's a sample. They would try it, they would buy it, or they wouldn't, and then we move on, take their take what they have to say into consideration, and try to put forth a better product for the following week or following next week.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
All set, Paul? Hold on. I want to see Paul's done.
Yeah, I think that I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sidney's been waiting a long time. Then I'll get you.
Yeah, but he spoke earlier.
Well, no, I mean, I've been listening and new stuff come up. It occurred to me, we've been talking about the new development that's going in this area, and I realized that the biggest project being built is independent senior living. It's not a typical condo situation. I don't think it's going to be people who are going to be walking to a liquor store, at least I would imagine. The other thing is, I was wondering if anybody had talked to the priest at the church.
Father Chip.
What's that?
Father Chip.
Yeah, I don't even, all I know is
At the church.
there's a priest at the church. I know there's a church, and
And probably there's a.
And here's the steeple.
so the reason I ask is because the church is about 420 feet from where this shop is planning to open. Mass General Law says 500 feet has to be specially considered. So I wondered if you had talked to anybody at the church.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, he deserves an answer.
I'm hoping that that's what I'm getting here.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too.
My name is Arthur Perlman. I'm an attorney. As far as notifying people within 500 feet, you have to send them written notice, certified mail, return receipt requested. They, in fact, have, I think, 5 or 6 addresses associated with the church. They got their notices. If they didn't appear, and they have to then respond and tell you if they have a problem.
Thank you.
No one has responded. So I'm presuming they do not have a problem, but they were notified. And that's in the affidavit that was given to you earlier. Can I make a few other points?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, to be an upscale liquor store, you don't have to find distributors that nobody knows. There are primary distributors in this state. I'm an attorney. I've also owned 2 liquor stores. One in Wayland and one in Mendon. Well, Wayland was kind of small, and it's more like this one. My one in Mendon was like 10,000 square feet. Different type of animal. When you have tastings, as they say, which really are more samplings, but I think most of us all say tastings. It's samplings. First of all, they're done in the evening. Most of the stores in this strip mall are closed by that time. You've got the 2 restaurants, Bill's and the Chinese restaurant. I think the others are probably closed. So you're not having a parking problem. Secondly, when you have these tastings, it's not like a sampling or a tasting as you're thinking of it, where we would do that in Mendon. In Mendon, we had a 10,000 square foot store. We had a huge parking lot. You would notify the public you're having a tasting. You might have 10 or 12 or more different distributors there. They would all have tables set up in the store, and they would sample. And you let people know in advance, and they'd come. The type of tastings that they're talking about are tastings where someone like M.S. Walker would come in. One distributor would come in at a time. You can set them up one a week, where M.S. Walker comes in one week and some other distributor comes in the next week. They take a part of just some small area. They can set up a little table. They'll probably have 3 bottles there, and they're bottles that they want people to try because they think they might like them. And there might be a white, there might be a red, there might be some other type of a wine, But what they would do is they would ask the people what they like. And if they like a certain type of wine, they like a Chardonnay, they probably have a Chardonnay there. They'd give them a little taste of the Chardonnay, say, have you tried this one? It's not where you're bringing people in. You're not advertising and asking people to come in there and flood the market. It's your actual customers that are coming in anyway. Those are the ones who are doing the tasting. So that's really not a problem. As far as hours, when you ask for hours, I always ask, unless my client tells me not to, for 8 to 11 every day. You don't have to be open 8 to 11, and I don't have to come back to you to ask you to change that. You are authorized to sell alcohol between 8 and 11. You can't sell it at 7, and you can't sell it at 12. But if you want to close at 9 o'clock, you can close at 9 o'clock. You post your hours on the store. You post your hours so people know when you're open. In Wayland, we were open I think from 10, I had 8 to 11 license. I was open at 10, and we closed at 8, because that was Wayland. There wasn't going to be anyone coming in later that we really wanted to deal with. So you don't have to open before 10. In Mendon, it was a huge store. We were open at 8 o'clock, and we were there till 11 o'clock, because that's the kind of store it was. It was a store that draws people from all over, sort of like Total Wine. With regards to the need aspect that you've hit upon, the courts and the ABC have made it clear that need is not need in the typical sense of need. It's want. And that's what they've told everyone. It's want. What they've come with 100 people, I think, in a day or 2 days or something like that. In a day or 2 days, they've got 100 people who said they'd want it. It's a want idea. The fact that there's another store so far, I mean, you can decide, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you what do you do. You're not going to listen to me if I did tell you. But what I'm saying is, there's a store a half a mile one way and 6/10 of a mile the other way. So you got 2 stores that are a half a mile and 6/10 of a mile away. Competition is not a valid objection. And it's not a valid ability for you to say, well, we're not going to do it because of competition, that they're not going to do well. So what I'm saying is, they can have an upscale store buying from the distributors that are in the book. They can still run an upscale store. They don't have to find new avenues of distribution. They don't have to do that. There are fine wines in there.
Yes.
Some stores don't want to carry it. I hear some stores say they don't want to carry it because it's too much money. They don't want to invest that kind of money buying Barola or whatever, so that they're going to satisfy a few customers' needs. An upscale store will have a few of those. So it can be an upscale store buying from those. Same with your craft beers. You can go to the same people that sell craft beer to everybody else.
Yes, you can.
And as far as having stuff that people coming out of Bill's or the Chinese restaurant might want to buy, everyone doesn't have to buy an upscale bottle, expensive bottle. You can have nice wines. Most wines cost between $9 and $12, $13. That's where most people are buying their wine. You're going to have some of that, because you're not going to turn people away because they can't afford to buy a $50 bottle of wine. But you can have a $50 bottle of wine. As far as the safety of the neighborhood, I think you've seen his store out in Hopkinton. Yep. They run a safe store. There's not a problem there. They might not even be being carried, some of the things that are sold at Dion's. You saw the 1.75. I'm not sure they're going to sell those. So they're not going to have someone coming in to buy this big, huge bottle of wine. They're not going to have people coming in buying 30 packs of Budweiser. That's not who they're after. They're after people who come and between Bill's and the Chinese restaurant, they do a big business. There's a lot of people going there. Now they go there and then they have to leave to go find half a mile this way or 6/10 of a mile that way to get something to go with it. Those people don't have to go somewhere else now. They can get it there and they can go home. Instead of going east and west, they might be going north or south. But they're being forced to go east and west before they can go north or south. They don't have to do that anymore. So all I'm suggesting to you is make your own decisions. It's your town. You do what you want to do. But a lot of this stuff is reasons. And I suggest not necessarily good reasons, but they're reasons. And if you want to have reasons to not let them in, you're not going to let them in. But I think it's a valid type of business to go there. I gather Bill's elevated his store from being some kind of pizzeria to some kind of nicer restaurant. He's trying to do that throughout. There's multiple stores there. You don't want a convenience store there. This is giving you a much better option. Anyways. Any questions?
Sure. No, hold on. Thank you.
Okay.
If I may continue my questioning? Thank you. Sorry, Catherine.
Oh, go ahead.
I did check the return receipts. The Archdiocese received 2.
Okay.
They were delivered on December 4th. One went to the Brighton office and one went to the church itself.
Okay.
So I will.
They had an opportunity to comment.
They did have an opportunity to comment.
Okay.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that. given the closeness, and I actually remeasured on maps, it's actually 400 feet, not 420. It's pretty close. I'd like to, if I may, address one comment that previous speaker said. He said, you don't want a convenience store there. Actually, I disagree with that. I think that you do want a convenience store there. That's been the demand from, in all the letters that we've seen. Let's have a convenience store. We need a convenience store again. We've missed that. And that's going to be something that is going to be useful to all these new developments, including the senior living one. So I just wanted to address that. And I did hear that there was no specific outreach to the priest, which frankly I would have hoped had happened anyway, despite the official legal notice, but not a problem. Thank you. I'm done.
Ms. Pope?
I appreciate Mr. Perlman's statements. Thank you. I think there is indeed a question around want. And I do not yet know that it's been satisfied. I appreciate Mr. Patel coming before the board. I appreciate that he wants to invest in the community of Natick. It is a priority, specifically of mine, to encourage economic development within the town. We have talked at length about the fact that Natick depends on its retail tax base. And so that is not something that I would want to discourage. However, this issue of want, as an entrepreneur, as an established entrepreneur, want is important. And there were several times where I felt like Mr. Patel's answers didn't demonstrate that he understood clearly that this was a want from the community, that he was solving a need, that he was answering a problem, that he was filling something that people were saying that they wanted. That, to me, was not quite demonstrated. And so that is important, not just for the sake of diversifying the businesses that are here or adding additional businesses, but truly meeting what the public desires and says that they want. And some of that needs to be done in advance. And so I am not clear that that has been satisfied today. And this is not a shot towards Mr. Patel or towards his business acumen or his potential investment in the town at all. But I think that is very important as we make this decision.
If I could just make a comment. So I am open into bringing different types of products, and I know that, you know, if customers come in and asking for milk and eggs and those types of things, I was always open to those types of things, but it's more about, okay, what a need is when the customer asks me for it, then it becomes a need. Till then, I just come up with this idea of, okay, well, this is what the community wants, this is what it needs. But once the customers start coming in and start asking me, oh, we want you to have this, so it makes it easier for us to shop here, and then those types of things are some things that I would want to bring in, just to make sure that I have those products as well.
So I'd like to make a couple of points. There are very few things that Mr. Perlman said that I disagree with, very few. It is the case that you can develop a fine wine store or have a range of beverages that are not available at other stores, and they need not be $50. So a Godello is a $14 bottle of wine. A Suave Classico is a $12 bottle of wine, maybe a $16 bottle of wine. Those are also in the book. The reason for the questioning was to make sure that the applicant understood what was needed to create the type of store that he's talking about. I have no doubt, I want to echo my fellow board members' comments about Mr. Patel, his family. I have no doubt that his character is of the highest regard. I took a look at their store. It's a lovely store. They've been welcomed by the Chamber of Commerce. They're an asset in their community. So there's no doubt in my mind as to the applicant's character or ability to discharge the responsibilities associated with a liquor license in this town. That's number one. Number two, again, the questions I asked about, like, where will you get food? So Start Line is offered in all 7 stores. You know, there are a number of different, the 2 beers we mentioned are offered in other stores. So it's, what I wanted to see is a sense of, I've done the planning, I've done the research, I've gone in the field, I went to Urban Grape, I went to this other little boutique store, the Wine House in Holliston. I looked at them and said, where do you get your cheeses? Where do you get your meats? How can I differentiate my offerings? And it has been my experience as a former store owner that when I did that, and I went to Natick Wine and Spirits, I went to the Wine House, I went to Dion's, I went to a number of different places, Natick Wine and Spirits, and said, what keeps you up at night? Where do you order from? How do I get different wines that nobody else has? Because I can't make margin on a Cavett Pinot Grigio. Can't do it, because I have one store and one license. And that means that all of my deliveries have to come to that store, and they have to stand alone. If I have 5 stores, I can't order 100 cases of Corona and get that deep discount and circulate that product legally amongst my stores. So what I wanted to do in asking all these questions wasn't to impugn the integrity or the intent of the applicant. It was to make sure that this person has a very good understanding of what's going to take to make that location succeed with the vision of what he was talking about. Now, number 2 or 3. With reference to the Ballerin standard, which was established, it's an appellate court decision in 2000. It established what a licensing board, local licensing board, needs to take into account when they are evaluating an applicant. And they established this thing called public need. So I'm going to read into the record exactly what that is. Consideration of a number of existing licenses in the area and the views of the inhabitants in the area can be, excuse me, can be taken into account when making a determination, as well as taking into account a wide range of factors such as traffic, noise, size, the sort of operation that carries a license, and the reputation of the applicant. The provisions for the issue of licenses and permits under Chapter 138 imply no intention to create rights. In other words, there's no right to a liquor license, but are enacted with the view only to serve the public need and in such a manner as to protect the common good, and to that end to provide, in the opinion of the licensing authorities, an adequate number of places at which the public may obtain, and this is the part I think is key, the different sorts of beverages for the sale of which provision is made. A previous speaker spoke about how people 35 and under are, that demographic is rapidly becoming sober or sober curious. And so, for example, in my store, I had 5 or 6 different types of non-alcoholic mixers. So understanding the market beyond what a convenience store is critical to making a difference in Natick according to our policies, what we're looking for when we issue that license. So I wanted to clarify and make sure that there was no misunderstanding. This is not about the applicant. The rigorous questions that I asked had to do with determining whether or not the applicant understood what was necessary to open the type of business that he was describing. And with reference to hours, we were instructed by Ralph Sacramone, the executive director of the ABCC, the town was instructed, that when a license is issued, it's fine to issue it from open to close, but you have to be open those hours. And the reason for that is, let's say everybody said open to close and they all closed at 9. That means that there may be a public need between 9 and 11 that the town has identified and authorized, but nobody's there. And that precludes maybe if you only have 7 licenses to give, that means that there's a license holder who might stay open to 11 who doesn't have the right to do that. That's why they created on the ABCC website, there's no processing fee, there's a form you fill out where you change your hours. You just let us know. We approve it in the sense that we tell the ABCC we've been notified that there's a change of hours. And then that goes to the ABCC. Our deputy chief does cite and inspect our license holders to make sure that they are open when they say they're going to be open. It's not fun to be there at 10 o'clock at night when it's dead, but if you're going to be open till 10 o'clock at night and you tell the town that this license is going to be open at 10 o'clock at night, then you happen to be open at 10 o'clock at night. Those are all my comments.
Any further? Sir?
Wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm not at all a public speaker, as you'll see soon. Some really good people speaking here tonight.
We do need your name and address.
My name is Dean Chronopoulos. I'm the owner of Bill's Pizza here in town. So I wanted to speak as a small business owner. We happen to own the property as well. And I'm here to speak for my family and the other stores that are in the plaza. We really want to see this business come here. We think it'll help us. I didn't know I started in the business 35 years ago as a pizza maker. That's what I do. I came to Natick about 12 years ago when I opened this one. And I didn't know everything at the time. I have to admit, I wasn't welcomed, with the exception of maybe a couple people who were actually in this room. But I've got pushback, believe it or not, for a pizza shop. And I felt isolated at the time. I felt like I wasn't accepted here. I was just trying to come in town and make something better in town and bring what I had done in Newton and bring it here. Anyway, I got pushback and I finally proved myself, but I'm just sitting here listening to this discussion about, this young man who wants to open up his place, and I understand your concerns, and we're concerned as property owners too, the safety and all, and we've made some serious considerations about this. We thought about it clear. I just want to make that clear. And we know it's a small space and a small parking lot. We've addressed those issues. Like I said, I speak for everybody in the plaza. They are eagerly anticipating this and want to see that this type of business there, more than just a convenience store that would offer, the typical things. And I got the sense actually that after speaking with the lieutenant for safety, that they would welcome this idea more than just a convenience store. That's the sense I got, that they didn't want just another convenience store. And that's another reason, well, aside from that, I'm just sitting here listening to everything, and I get everybody's concern. I understand that. We want the best for the town. We want the best for the building. We're looking for long-term, we plan to be here a long time. We've owned the building for over 30 years. I think we've shown we've maintained the property. We want good tenants there. We want small businesses there. We want to promote small business. We want to see more foot traffic. We just think it'll be an asset. I'm trying to speak as a small business owner, not just a property owner. But I can take some questions if you have something about the property, about the parking, about the I think there was some questions about where they're going to deliver, or trucks being on East Central Street. And I think we've addressed those, that there's access and there is space in the rear. There is access for my deliveries, my Coke deliveries. My 18-wheelers pull up in the back behind Dunkin' Donuts, which is our lot, and access the little sidewalk there. So I just want to make that clear, that there shouldn't be an issue about parking. We as property owners will be strict owners for this type of business. We will make sure that he's following all his rules. We just from our liability side of it, not just to have another tenant there. We didn't want to just put another retail store there. We wanted to put something special, something that would draw customers, something that would help the other businesses as well. So that was the reason why we considered this application too. So what can I say? We want to see this happen for the gentleman here. And can I answer any questions about the property? Can I answer any questions about parking, deliveries, needs, wants? We want it. My tenants want it. My community wants it. As a matter of fact, the idea came, we were originally going to open Mile 10 Market, the general store, and people were asking us, will you have alcohol or liquor and things of that nature? I wasn't planning on doing that when I was considering with the application, my application at the time. So we were inspired by the customers. We were inspired by the people of the town who were coming to me personally and asking me, will you offer this? I'd love to have this. I'd love to be able to come here and get my my pizza and my sushi and grab a bottle of wine or a six-pack of, a nice beer. So I can honestly say this idea, this concept came from my customers at Bill's. They inspired us to actually think about opening the general store, the Mile 10 general store that would offer just beer and wine. But we thought this, and by the way, we can't just open another convenience store. They won't allow a cigarette license. That's another issue why it's been a little bit of a halt for that. So this place won't have a cigarette license, according to the town and what they allow. So after speaking to the lieutenant, he also said that he wasn't pro-convenience store. I got the sense, maybe George did too, that they would welcome this type of opportunity, this type of business. And that's the sense I got when I walked out of that meeting. So again, I just want to reiterate that our customers, my personal customers, asked for this. They wanted to see that in this building, in this plaza. Otherwise, I would never consider it. I don't drink, so I've never drank. So it's not in my, I don't know a lot about it. So, but I know, it would help the businesses. And I know some people do, adults, responsible adults. And I, as an owner, would be, we'll have a strict lease, no tolerance, no mistakes. We just want the safety as well. We want, I don't know how else to explain it. I would make sure that he's following all the rules, and I would be on top of him as a tenant, or as a landlord, just to make sure that that he's following all the rules and the right thing is being done in this building. So, can I answer any questions?
I think you've articulated what your positions are and addressed some of the questions that some of us had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no questions, but to Mr. Konopoulos, as the individual that brought the petition to lower the requirements to allow on-premises consumption, and somebody that introduced himself to you years ago with economic development in mind and the opportunity for Bill's Pizzeria to not just be another pizzeria, I remember the pushback on people hearing another pizzeria is coming to town. What you did exceptionally well and continue to do as a custodian of that property, your family's property, is to differentiate and provide great service. You've built a community around your customers. So I want to acknowledge that, and that's really important. There's no doubt in my mind how you run the property, how you've thought this through logistically. From my standpoint, one of the challenges, I look at economic development, and our responsibility right now is we're making a decision for the community at large and not a specific property and not a specific cluster of businesses. We have to look at the all alcohol license as a privilege that should be serving a broader community. Bluntly, when we got the 100 signatures, the first question that went through my head is, out of how many people that are going through, what percentage of your foot traffic does that represent? Other questions that come to mind, and when we talk about the liquor licenses for off-premises, we do have other beer and wine licenses. So we have talked at length in town about the idea of specialty foods places that have high-end, maybe uniquely positioned beer and wine as a complement to whatever the food offer is. I know there's a demand for that, and there are people. So I think from my standpoint, I really draw a hard line between a beer and wine license as part of a gourmet foods package. Take a Wasix in Wellesley, the cheese shop, if they were to offer beer and wine as a complement to high-end cheeses. I look at Silesia as a market downtown, Mediterranean focus. They don't have a license, but I could see them offering Syrian beer or Middle Eastern wine as a complement to what they're doing. So these are the things that I think about and have come up in multiple public meetings about the discussion of how do we diversify and expand the offer to the community. What's troubling to me, much like my colleagues have reiterated and I said before, is it's, to me, I feel like we're trying to adapt an original plan to fit what we're looking for, as opposed to there's a specific passion and a goal here. And that's what's troublesome to me in this particular application. I asked a couple of times and I listened aggressively to some of the answers, and I just didn't feel that the product mix, the positioning of this is necessarily serving a public need. With respect, It might be answering some of the things you're hearing as a business owner and hearing from your customers. But our job is to represent the community public, not just a specific customer base. And that's kind of where, in my mind, where I'd kind of draw that line. But that said, again, I want to thank you and the family that you've continued to operate a great business there. We are regulars at your restaurant at Shanghai Tokyo and Dunk's and the places in that plaza. Given its geographic limitations, I think you've done a tremendous job with the space. I've also, wearing my economic development hat, had conversations with several convenience store owners around this community. It's a difficult, if not impossible, business to run in this day and age. It's very, very competitive, and I know in many cases people are looking for that competitive differentiator in that market. I do think there's a tremendous opportunity in this community for specialty retail, but I haven't seen it in this application. I haven't heard it in the answers, and to me that's what's so troublesome. So, but.
I understand.
Yeah, but if you, any speaking, just do it on the microphone if you wouldn't mind.
I'll try to speak loud.
Well, no,
you have to do the microphone.
Some people are watching at home.
People at home.
Okay,
So-
I'll be quick. I just want to say that, he can, he's already, he has the experience, but you got to give him a chance to grow his business or learn from his business, and he'll adapt and do the things that are needed. And what he'll see, even I listen to my customers, I listen to the needs, and I make changes in my menu and things of that nature. So just because he may not have his concept or his business plan completely in line, give him a chance to develop it. Give him a chance to, like I said, when I first started, I had 10 things on my menu, and I started in a little store, and I was up against these big names that were coming up. I didn't know everything, but so because you don't know, maybe he hasn't articulated it well, or maybe he didn't present it well, and like you understand that the applications came from 2 different places, and I offered him my advice also, which may have influenced him to add some of those products, and that would help our business. So he adapted. I just feel like the reasons that you're giving him are not fair. That's just my opinion. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. I just ask my board members a question. If we, Paul, it's probably more a Paul question. If we deny this application now, is there anything preventing an applicant from resubmitting, and as they develop a more crystallized business model and need analysis, they can come forward with another application? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any further comments?
I will say, if I may, to respond.
We need to move on just for Mr. Perlman. We're at 9:45. We still have a lot to do.
If I may just respond to that with a little context. So the simple answer is yes. I think the business answer to that is it's very difficult as a business owner to make investments in capital improvements, doing a fit out and projecting what your expenses are going to be. The startup of a business relies on predictability. So I find it hard to believe as a business owner you're going to bet on the future. So there is a, realistically speaking, but this to me speaks to this idea of, and with due respect to the previous speaker, talking about, you have to experiment. I own I rent, but I run 2 locations downtown. I spent the last year waiting for the cow paths to form before they got paved in my product mix, right? In many businesses, that's okay. This is an all-alcohol license, and I just look at it fundamentally different. You can't be learning on the job here. I think there's a better opportunity with beer and wine if you're going to go that route.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Are we ready to talk about motions?
Point of order?
Yeah.
We're going to need 2 motions. One is that there's no objection with regard to being within, that the board finds no objection. It's within 500, and then.
Okay. Yep.
Move to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Thanks, Gintar.
A second.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Coughlin, seconded by Mr. Sidney. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay, 5-0. All right, now do you have a motion? Or the first of your motions?
I move that the board finds no objection to the license being within 500 feet of a church or place of worship or school.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Coughlin, seconded by Mr. Sidney. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and your second?
I'd open it to
Oh,
the
you
board.
don't have one, I'm sorry. Okay. Anybody have a motion they want to make?
I move that the current application as submitted does not meet the Ballerin test as cited earlier in the record, and as such, there is no public need.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Coughlin, seconded by Mr. Sidney. Discussion?
Yes,
Hold on, she's the maker.
I have no discussion.
yeah, the only discussion I have is that I think that we might find, and I can't speak for the board, but I would certainly be open to a convenience store with a beer and wine license in that location. I'm not in favor of an all alcohol license in that location.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Others? I just wanted to reiterate some of the comments that my colleagues have mentioned very quickly. I think I like the idea of the lesser license, the beer and wine only, rather than a full license. I think it is a tough location, no question about it. I don't see the uniqueness yet, but that's why I asked the question of, can a revised application, once the business model has been thought through a little bit more, maybe fleshed out a little more, maybe done a little more homework. Clearly, the applicant has a great background, has great character, all the things we'd want in our community. But I tend to agree that this specific application, I cannot support it. So, and
Actually, I do have a comment.
Yes, Ms. Coughlin.
It doesn't give me any great joy to move to deny this application. It doesn't give me any great happiness. After a former applicant was denied, I made an offer to meet with him to talk about what I would see and how to model what the board might accept, not speaking for the board, but as somebody who understands the business. And we spent several hours looking at different businesses, walking around downtown, and talking about what that could possibly be. So I, again, offer that to the current applicant, and I'm more than happy to do that. I take no joy in denying a small business a license.
I mean, I ditto that, with many years of economic development and experience trying to bring new businesses and innovative business models to town. Happy to spend time supporting that. And the Economic Development Committee does have a meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 if anyone wants to attend.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm choosing to abstain.
Okay, so that's a 4-0. One vote. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Move for a brief recess.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brief recess.
Let's do like 5 minutes if we can.
We are back.
Hey, Jocelyn. Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next up is one of our few remaining people in the room, Mr. Osler, to talk about Constituent Rail Trail Advisory Committee. Well,
Hi. Hello, board members. Josh Ostroff, I'm chair of the Cochituate Rail Trail Advisory Committee and have worn various other hats, but that's the capacity I'm in tonight. I am also, however, on the board of the Friends of Natick Trails. And I am here to talk about a committee recommendation, a two-part recommendation that is, I think, in your packet. It is to, I'll just get right to it, and then why, and then I've got a short presentation if you would indulge me. It'll be about like 45 minutes or so with charts and graphs. Small print. And
Very small print.
And I'll read every slide because I've heard this.
Thank you.
No, that when I tell you it's like 5 slides and I go through it quickly, it'll sound good. So, but the recommendation, unanimous vote of the committee, which was established in 2006 as a task force, is to have the board discharge the committee. I would ask that to be like maybe effective in a couple of weeks so we can have one meeting to approve minutes. And then the second part is for the committee to, the town administrator to establish a working group that would have oversight for the trail, and that would be to help ensure that we are providing the kind of visibility, accountability, and oversight and coordination across departments and agencies that is needed to make this resource continue to succeed for the community and for the region. So the specific motion was moved to recommend that the Select Board discharge the CRT Advisory Committee and that the town administrator convene an interdepartmental working group to oversee and coordinate capital projects, operations, programs, and events, and policy related to the Cochituate Rail Trail, and that the town administrator identify a lead to help ensure coordination, visibility, and accountability for this community resource. So that's a multi-part recommendation. I think the board's authority is just to discharge the committee that the board established years ago, and then we would hope the town administrator would follow through on the other part. And I'm pretty confident that would happen because we've had conversations. Mr. Marshall and I have spoken about this a lot. We had a meeting in this room maybe a month ago with John Westerling, DPW director, with Claire Rondelli, who's been the main staff person for the CRT and community development, with Morgan Griffiths, the Transportation Economic Development Planner, and of course, Art Goodhind wasn't at the meeting, but has been an amazing presence with his team and taking care of the trail. So that's the main recommendation. The kinds of work that we've done, I would just highlight in the presentation that I'll give, if that's okay. But the things that I would like to see a task force do in the years to come relate to working on capital projects, and those could be large things like the connection to Natick Center that's currently in design, that we've been working on with Mass DOT and AECom, the engineering firm, with the Lake Cochituate Path. There was a public hearing here with connections to multifamily developments, perhaps working with DCR on an accessible path getting down to Camp Arrowhead. The Mechanic Street lot, of course, that's substantially complete, but there will be other things that get built in the course of time, and of course repairs and maintenance. There's a lot of other projects that will happen. Some things are supported by the revolving fund that's funded through sponsorships. Others we may get grant money in, but those building things and maintaining them. The second is maintenance, and that's really under DPW's domain with Art and his team. The Community Economic Development may get involved depending on jurisdiction. Landscaping is another aspect of maintenance, and there's a lot of volunteers that do that, a lot of plantings that happen. It's not uncommon for there to be volunteer events to clean up the rail trail. Even the contractor has a veterans committee that comes in now and then to do work. Third is programs and events. As you know, the New Year's Eve event, but we also had a public art earlier this year. I foresee more of that. There are charity runs that happen on the trail. There's just, it's like a town square. We had the accessible cycling event, and working with community services, I foresee more of that because we have grant funding to support it. It's been suggested that there be a 4th of July event. I mean, anything could happen on a trail as long as it doesn't interfere with normal enjoyment. And Claire has brought forward an events policy that I think is working its way through and may come to you at some point. And then the last thing, so there's capital maintenance programs is policy, which is likely to be an evolving area. As an example, a couple of years ago, the legislature passed e-bike legislation, which was long overdue, to really have electronic bikes be recognized as a mobility device, not in this gray area. So class 1 and 2 bikes are allowed, but class 3, the ones with throttle, are still in that gray area. But it would allow a municipality to regulate bikes on rail trails, which Natick has not done, but there may need to be at some point. The future of micromobility is that we may see increased differential in speeds between someone like, using a walker and someone on an e-bike going 28 miles an hour. Those pose challenges, even on a 12-foot wide shared use path like the CRT. So there's some policy things as well. These are all things that can work well within a working group, as opposed to an appointed committee, where things may come up that may be long-term, and policy stuff, of course, would come to this board or maybe other jurisdictions. But mostly it's the day-to-day stuff. But I just want to reflect that this is the 3rd time that the committee has considered going away, and has, in the past, has made a recommendation to. One of the things that you get with a committee is the experience we have now, where there's a posted meeting. People can find out what's going on. They can come and ask questions, offer opinions. They knew who to go to. With a working group, that isn't always the case. So I think that that's why the recommendation to ensure that there's visibility is important, and one that I know the administration will take to heart. So, but I think that the committee, I think, has served an important purpose over 16 or so years. We've got an extraordinary amenity that you all have been a part of, and town meeting and FinCom and so forth. So if it's okay, could I share a screen and go through that quickly? Just go to the Department of Zoom and share it, and here we go.
That's a pull.
Does that work? Great. Okay. So, yay for 17 years of forward progress. This may resonate. The CRT can now get a driver's license, but cannot yet vote. So,
you have some fake IDs if you want.
Yeah, but I think that's against policy. The fake ID thing. So I just want to acknowledge that before the CRT task force, there was advocacy for the rail trail while there were still freight trains. And Dick Miller and George Eckert, Stephen Broadley, and others were involved with various other committees. And there was you see a little excerpt of a reconnaissance study that the CTPS, that's like the staff for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, did in 1999. There was Cheryl Jakes, who represented Natick for a while. She helped persuade, advocate for rail trail policies and to encourage the state to do more than it did. And the CRT was part of that even before it existed. In fact, I just want to shout out to Stephen Broadley, who lives in Natick near the trail. He designed the logo that's in use today. So the committee was established when CSX said we are formally abandoning freight use on the right-of-way, which netted them $5,000 in annual revenue. The one customer at the time was Metro Storage and Freezer and Storage, where Avalon Apartments is now. And I like to tell people in talking about how the region has changed, you had an industrial use, $5,000 in revenue. The town then had to pay $6 million to buy the land, something I will never be happy about. But now it's 400 units of multifamily housing. So how things have changed, how industrial is now residential, and we care about recreation so much more than we did. Anyway, the task force provided a report to the select board which said this is a viable use. In December was the first town meeting appropriation. Another fun fact is at that special town meeting in December 2006, $107,000 for the rail trail from mitigation funds we had. And we also did the 40R zoning, the first in the state where Natick, Madeira is now. So that's another sort of twinning of how this, Natick has evolved alongside the trail. That appropriation also provided appraisals, environmental research, and really helped continue momentum. In the years to follow, we did outreach with abutters, the first of several appraisals. We did annual newsletters. The rails and ties came up from CSX. We had a community forum, more title environmental work. The conceptual design study was like the foundation for what the design product would be. We were asked to explore whether trail and public transit could coexist. Short answer, no. Not with the width that we had, but it was research that needed to be done. We started the 25% design in 2014, and that continued. The first funding milestone was when the MPO approved not the final budget, but they said, yes, this will be given state and federal funding for construction once you buy the right-of-way and finish the design. So town meeting voted about 80% majority to buy the right-of-way for that princely sum. We had the public hearing in early 2017, the design, groundbreaking. You've probably seen the pictures of the aerial shots of the bridges being installed. Maybe many of you were at the ribbon cutting or the groundbreaking. And in recent years, the Natick Center connection and the Lake Cochituate Path design projects have continued. It's a couple 100,000 users per year. We have a counter on loan from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, which I think undercounts people because if you're walking side by side, it only counts one user. So we need a special appropriation for a single file design. That would be a policy issue. I just want to acknowledge that there were 38 people that have served on this committee. Some folks were appointed, didn't necessarily serve in a meeting. Others, like Dave Camacho and I from the beginning, Will Schoenig shortly thereafter. A lot of different people have been through this committee, and it's interesting. And if you ever serve on a committee and you go through the annual reports, it's interesting how committees are really populated by people. The Route 9 bridge kind of tells a story. It was a railroad bridge, obviously, for many years. The top left, we put up bollards when early after the abandonment. It wasn't our land, but we did have the interest in public safety, so those Jersey barriers and bollards were there. In 2017, after we bought it, through a lot of volunteer effort, the bridge was made walkable, even though the trail itself was not paved, to provide a public benefit. In 2019, the bridge, those are wing walls and abutments that were being constructed. And then Rich Ames of the GIS division did some great drone footage of the bridges being installed. And it's in use today for the thousands of people that are enjoying it every week. I just want to thank you on behalf of the committee. And it's just been so great to do this. But there's a time and place for everything. And I think the time is now and the place is here to bid the committee farewell. So perhaps, December 31st or something, we'll have her wrap it up. Unless you want to force the committee to stay in existence, but I don't know. You might need to appoint new members.
Before I do a motion, I just wanted to thank everyone who was involved with this project because this was over a decade, from conception to complete, approaching 2, that's true. And I remember there were a lot of naysayers along the way. And what we see today is the product of all the people working really hard on this. A lot of hours, a lot of toil, a lot of sweat equity, a lot of things to make this happen. And I hear constantly from people who say, this was a great idea. This is an amenity that everyone would use. I know all the naysayers said, no, who's going to use this? Nobody's ever going to use this, and they were dead wrong. So I thank the committee's perseverance and the leadership of the committee's perseverance. And I know that it's an amenity that both businesses and individual residents utilize constantly. I cannot tell you how many times I'm driving along Route 30 and I see, at least 5 or 6 people going across that bridge at the time. So kudos, great job, and I'll take a motion to recommend the discharge. In fact, I will make the motion.
I'll second it.
Move to recommend that the Select Board discharge the CRT Advisory Committee, that the Town Administrator convene an interdepartmental working group to oversee and coordinate capital projects, operations, programs, events, and policy related to the Kitchitchewit Rail Trail, and that the Town Administrator identify a lead to help ensure coordination, visibility, and accountability for this community resource.
And the discharge should be effective January 1st.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Okay, I moved it and seconded by Mr. Sidney. Any comments? Mr. Joseph?
I may. Thank you, Mr. Ostroff, and thank you for including that slide of everybody that's been involved. I was on the receiving end of a lot of, I'll say the naysayers as well, for lack of a better phrase, but people that said $6 million, you're out of your mind, why are we spending this kind of money? Last night, a couple of us were able to attend a networking event at the MathWorks, hosted by the Metro West Chamber of Commerce. And I know people from my past life at the Chamber with the MathWorks. I know people at Exponent, I know people at TJX, and all of these large employers along this trail. This matters. Mm-hmm. This matters to their investment decision to continue to acquire and develop the property that's there. And this matters to them attracting young people that want to work in suburban Boston right now. So, it was very hard to make that return on investment argument in absence of these stories, but we can say with 100% certainty now, complemented by the Friends of the Natick Trails that have solicited donations from Middlesex Bank and Landry's Bicycles and Punch Bowl, myriad of others that support it. This has been an engagement tool for our commercial base as much it's been a vital asset for our community in terms of expanding utilization of open space. So it's delivered on and then some, I think, in terms of what people had envisioned initially. So thank you for your long time effort for that, and the town has been rewarded handsomely for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Well said. Ms. Pope?
Thank you, Chairman. I want to say this, ditto that, Josh, Mr. Ostroff, and thank you.
That's right there.
Thank you very much for the foresight of this committee to do something like that. This truly is a legacy project. This predates my time here in Natick, but it will long serve us afterwards. I'm always so grateful to the things that I get to enjoy that, didn't require my hand, but that someone had the foresight to put this in motion and put it together. And now we have this beautiful, miles-long rail trail that people get to enjoy and will get to enjoy later. So I am truly grateful for the hard work that has gone into this and will continue to go into this. Thank you.
One comment. Ditto, and in addition to foresight, perseverance.
I don't get a ditto?
You get a ditto, but you have to add something. So I'm adding, in addition to foresight, perseverance, because there are very few people who look ahead 20 years and say, yeah, we can do this, and diligently put their hand on the keel and steer the boat. So kudos, and thank you.
Very well said.
Well, I don't think you put your hand directly on the keel.
I'm not a sailor. I have no
Steering.
idea. Or put their hand on the rudder.
Delegate that to
Just in
Rich.
case
He's
there's
a
any,
sailor.
The steering wheel of the boat.
mariners.
Don't be a keel.
So ditto everything.
Yeah, you don't touch
And,
the keel. It's the
I think I've been sort of peripherally involved in this project through its entire process.
Yeah.
Because I've been on town meeting for 20 years. I've seen it go through town meeting. I saw it go through the finance committee. I saw all of the arguments about why are we spending $6 million? And what I can say, Josh, is that I don't think this would have happened without you. There were a lot of people involved, but I think you spearheaded it, and I want to really acknowledge that and thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't use the trail very much, but it's an incredible asset in this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Mr. Ostroff's picture is in the dictionary next to persistent. Okay. So we have the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 500.
Could I have just another minute of your time?
Yeah.
I'm very proud of MathWorks. They paved their 1/10 of a mile connection to the Lakeside campus even before construction had barely started, which was awesome. Terry Evans was the editor for these amazing historical panels that I just get so much joy seeing people working on them. So
I'm in such trouble at home.
Oh, sorry about that.
For not saying.
And Rich, the town provided a thank you for the project initiation guy at Mass DOT District 3, who were such fans of this over the years. A guy named Arthur Frost recently retired, and you were at that event.
I was.
And I found out afterwards that Natick, this was the first thank you event that anyone had ever done for Mass DOT. But they're amazing partners for the town, as is the T, and it was nice to be able to do that. So I appreciate the kind words, but it's what you do. You have to look ahead, and it's a team sport. So appreciate it. Thanks for firing us.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Hit the trail.
All right, hit the trail. You didn't. All right, so committees. I don't think at 10:27 we want to talk about committees, but I'll send out an email and we'll figure out who does what to whom.
If I could make one comment on committees?
Yes, if it's under 30 seconds.
It will be. I heard from one of the members of the Audit Advisory Committee that his term is up. He asked how to get reassigned. He wants to. I want to just put a plug out. We have, in addition to his term expiring and him going to re-up, we still have a vacancy on that committee.
Right. Well, that could be a test case for the volunteer. Anyway.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and I apologize if I missed something, but did we cover agenda item C, or were we?
No, I did not announce that. That was withdrawn.
Okay.
And it'll be on a future agenda. Sorry, I meant to mention that.
Yep, no worries.
On to the consent agenda.
All right.
Says
We
Mr.
have a bunch
Belichick.
of items. I'm going to read them off and see if anybody wants to pull anything. Item A, approve 2024 alcohol license renewals. Item B, approve a temporary extension of hours for Praia and WS DBA Natick Wine and Spirits. Item C, approve select board office hours at the Natick Community Senior Center and the Farmers Market. Item D, approve the Conservation Commission's request that the select board vote to amend the traffic rules and orders Schedule B to include enforcement of the 4-hour parking limit in the 11 Mechanic Street parking lot. Item E, approve terms for the Select Board appointed Community Preservation Committee members. Item F, approve meeting minutes from April 12, 2023. And item G, approve request from Meridian Lodge to hold a blood drive on January 20th, 2023 at 24 Main Street and reserve 4 parking spaces. Anybody want to pull anything? I move the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a comment, however, which is on the Conservation Commission request. They did, that lot is controlled by the Conservation Commission, and that's why they had to vote to amend or to suggest amending the hours. It was designed so that people wouldn't use that parking lot for commuter parking, but rather to use it for access to the aforementioned Cochituate Rail Trail. Okay.
And I move the consent agenda.
I will second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, no opposed, or 500.
Mr. Chair, one select person concern.
Sure.
Joan has forwarded the meeting minutes for 9/20/23. If you have any comments, please get them back to her so that we can get those on the next meeting agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so a motion to adjourn, please.
Does the TA have any notes?
Oh,
Hopefully not.
make them good, John, make them good.
Just really briefly, just to update the board, we're a member of the West Suburban Health Group. That's how we kind of have our joint health insurance that we purchase for our employees and our retirees. Just wanted to update the board that we are doing a comprehensive look. The board of the West Suburban Health Group, it's been about 30 years since it's been going on, so we just want to take a look at it and review it. We do have a seat on that board, so just wanted to let the board know we're continuing to look at the health insurance options for our employees and just try to figure out what the best thing for the employees in the town is to make sure we have good coverage for our employees, but also make sure we're doing it with a financial lens and trying to be responsible. So,
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Move to adjourn?
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Mr. Sidney, seconded by Ms. Coughlin.
And if you
All in
want to
favor,
stay,
please
vote
say aye.
against it.
I'm not even going to abstain. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, another late one.